Good morning. Good morning. If you all can take your seats and get your coffee and donuts. We are at 8:31. We want to get started because we do have an extraordinary half a day. And so we want to go ahead and be timely. So I'm going to say good morning and welcome to Fair Housing Month. As we celebrate Fair Housing Month, the month of April, we want to welcome you to the 2024 Big Bend Fair Housing Conference in celebration of National Fair Housing Month. It is great to see all of you all here in person, and to our online viewers, we would like to welcome you as well and hope you will enjoy online as much as we are going to enjoy our conversation here in person. I have the pleasure of first introducing our moderator who will come to the podium shortly and take us through the day, Nicole Everett. Yay. She's a conversationalist, media content producer, mental health advocate, and connector. Originally from Miami, Florida, and a two-time graduate of the Florida Agriculture and Mechanical University. She currently serves as the Advancing Black Home Ownership Program Manager for the Big Bend Habitat for Humanity and enjoys volunteering her time and talents to nonprofit boards and community committees, such as the Mental Health Council of the Big Bend and Working Class Wednesday. So if you all have not had an opportunity to join her at on those Working Class Wednesdays, you are definitely missing a treat. When she's not working and volunteering, Nicole loves hosting and producing her talk show Conversations with Nicole, which currently broadcasts on social media twice weekly, and clinicians of color as featured guests. In an effort to end mental health illness stigma and normalize dialogue around mental health and wellness in Black and Brown communities. CWN also airs on Tallahassee Big Bend Station 96.1 Jazz Sundays and from 8:30 to 9, connecting community through conversations. Also, I would like to add, that's not part of my notes, if you haven't had a chance to listen to our podcast for the month of April, please, I'm sure she have them posted. They were absolutely wonderful. Every week during the month of April, we hosted a conversation with Nicole talking about fair housing in our communities. We had Karen Miller, who is our executive director from Tallahassee Lenders Consortium, Joe Walker, who did an outstanding job yesterday on civil rights and human and fair housing. So, and our very own too, Dante. If you haven't heard Dante, he will be our presenter this morning. Also did an outstanding job. And so we want you, if you haven't had an opportunity to tune in, I think it's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. So if you haven't had an opportunity to go back and take a few minutes and listen, very resourceful, very high energy, good vibes. It was just an excellent podcast. So I'm going to stop here and bring Miss Nicole up, and she will take us through the next, the rest of the morning. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. How y'all doing? Good. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So glad to be here. Thank you so much, Tammy, for that introduction. And yes, those conversations can be found on the Conversations with Nicole YouTube channel. Dante also was on the radio show, on my radio show earlier this month, and that can be found on Conversations with Nicole on Spotify. And yes, Joe and I had a great conversation last night about civil rights, past, present, and future. So we kind of had a debate on whether or not housing is a civil right or a human right, or should it be. So it was a great discussion. At any rate, I'm again glad to be here to help moderate the day and get us going. Our theme this year for Fair Housing Month is the Act in Action. And so we definitely want to put the Fair Housing Act in action. This is very important work. And so there are a host of fair housing champions that you will hear from today. And we will get questions and comments, hopefully, from our online viewers. So, but without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Mr. Dante Bonner, Darren Dante Bonner, who is a graduate from the Florida A&M University. Any Rattlers in the house? What y'all at today? Y'all up? Okay, thank you. Wake up. Come on. All right. The prestigious School of Business and Industry with a BS degree in Business Administration. He has over 26 years of experience in the field of civil rights and employment law. He has served the Florida Commission on Human Relations in various capacities during his career: customer service representative, mediator, investigator, and customer service intake manager. Currently, he serves as the Educational Outreach Training Coordinator for the agency. He is responsible for providing educational outreach for the citizens and organizations of the state of Florida, as well as facilitating external and internal trainings. He has worked with local, state, national, and international organizations and conferences, workshops, and events to increase the awareness of civil rights and the audience's responsibility in their actions. He also holds credentials for the prestigious Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certification. Mr. Bonner is committed to ensuring that all citizens and employees receive the highest level of knowledge and information to be effective and impactful within the community. His philosophy is that all people, regardless of gender, ethnicity, age, or belief system, should have the right to live peacefully amongst all individuals and to enjoy life to the utmost without being subjected to discrimination. Y'all will help me welcome Mr. Dante Bonner. Hold on, we got the church finger. Oh, yes, yes. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun, y'all. Can we bring up our city and county representatives to give us greetings? Jelani.
Morning, everybody. I'm Jelani Marks. I'm manager of Leon County's Division of Housing Services. On behalf of my colleagues at Leon County Government, I'm happy to be here with you all this morning at the Fair Housing Conference. So the theme is the Act in Action, right? Is that right?
Yes.
So in order to talk about the Act in Action, I've always been a history buff. I've always been a history guy. So I like to go back to the roots and see how the act began. April is Fair Housing Month, which recognizes the passage of the Fair Housing Act of 1968 and encourages people to learn more about their rights. The Fair Housing Act was a landmark civil rights law designed to protect Americans from discrimination in the sale, rental, and financing of housing based on protected classes. The passage of the Fair Housing Act would not have been possible without years of strategic efforts from dedicated activists like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was assassinated just days before the act was signed by President Lyndon Johnson. Leon County is committed to promoting fair housing opportunities for all and preventing discrimination in housing by providing information and education to citizens, including during today's conference. Throughout the day, you'll have the opportunity to not only learn about how to strengthen our community through fair and affordable housing, but also how to empower citizens with information about what to do when you or a loved one feel your rights have been violated. Before we begin the conference overview, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the partnership between Leon County government, the city of Tallahassee, Gadsden County, the Florida Commission on Human Relations, shout out to Dante, and the many community partners involved in planning this critically important event during National Fair Housing Month. So we can see that when we work together, the community can accomplish great things. And now I'll turn it back over to Nicole Everett. Thank you and enjoy the conference.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Angela Hendrith. I'm the Chief Diversity Officer for the City of Tallahassee, and I bring you greetings on behalf of our mayor, city commissioners, appointed officials, leadership team, and every person who works for this organization. The City of Tallahassee is and continues to be committed to affirmatively furthering fair housing through education and advocacy, which is why we're so proud to be a part of this event here today. We've been working with this group for a number of years, and every year it gets bigger and better. I was just saying to Nicole, I love the way that we continue to grow as a group, and that's because we're all committed to ensure that every person has basic human rights to fair housing. So on behalf of the City of Tallahassee, I bring you greetings and welcome you to this event. Thank you.
All right, now I bring you Darren Dante Bonner with the Florida Commission on Human Relations.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, sure. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. There you go. There you go. I'm taking after former Secretary Marshall Fudge. Want to make sure everybody is awake on this morning. I first bring you greetings on behalf of the Florida Commission on Human Relations. My executive director, Ms. Cheyenne Castilla, is presiding over us. So I have the opportunity to kick us all off with fair housing. This is National Fair Housing Month. And first of all, give yourselves a hand for coming out on this morning. That's a very weak, but give yourselves a hand for coming out, getting up, getting dressed, coming out. And for our online visitors, thank you for getting up out of your bed, still in your slippers and your night shirts, and still got a little coffee on the side. So my job is today talking about fair housing, emerging topics. And with National Fair Housing Month, the Act in Action, HUD always has a theme to go throughout the country to be able to encourage everyone as far as what the Fair Housing Act is. And I'm going to talk about what we do as an agency that we are in partnership with the hold on. We're having some technical difficulty. Okay, here we go. So the Florida Commission on Human Relations, we are the state agency for the state of Florida. We are the only one, and we were created in July of 1969. We investigate discrimination complaints, not only in fair housing, but we also cover employment, certain public accommodation, and state whistleblower retaliation complaints. And because of our state law, we do have a partnership not only with the EEOC, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, but also Housing, Urban, and Development, which is also HUD. One of the beauties about our agency is we have partnerships all across the state. One of our strong partners is here with the City of Tallahassee, which we partner to do best practices, to cover complaints, discuss different things that we can do to eradicate discrimination complaints. Okay. Discrimination. So one of the things you're going to learn about me is this is not going to be a one-sided conversation. Okay. This is not going to be a one-sided conversation. So I don't like trainings. Trainings are very boring. Parents sitting like, oh my God, when is this man going to stop talking? When is she going to stop talking? I need to get home. I got some grits on the stove, that type of thing. So, but I like to have conversations. When you have conversations with individuals, you also learn as well as I learn as well. So, and also it gives you a better understanding of what the mindset is, not only of just the community, but also at the nation at large. So my first question to you, what is discrimination? And I want you to think about what I just asked you. What is discrimination? Anyone? And I will be like your third grade teacher. If no one raises their hand, I will call upon someone. So, what is discrimination? Yes, sir.
I would say,
All right, wonderful. Anyone else? What is discrimination? If you can go to the next slide. You get a door prize. The treatment of a particular group of persons differently in a way that is worse than the people that are usually treated, or the practice of treating people, companies, products differently in a different way. One of the biggest misnomers about the word discrimination is it's always tied to race or gender. But just the word discrimination by itself is talking about a different treatment of individuals. So, I want everyone that wears glasses to stand up, please. I wear glasses, but I got on contacts, so I don't count. All right. So, everyone that wears glasses, what if I was to tell you, because you wear glasses, I am not going to allow you to buy a house? Thank you. Have a seat. I have just discriminated against you because you wear glasses. Is that fair? No. Is that right? Is it immoral? Is it unethical? Is it illegal? Now, aside from the fact as far as disability, but the act of just wearing glasses is not a discriminatory act in and of itself. So again, it goes to treating people differently because of a particular group, a particular class. If you go to the next slide. So when we talk about fair housing, what actually is fair housing? Next slide. It is the right of every citizen to obtain housing of their choice without being limited to race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, or familial status. When we talk about fair housing, it is talking about where a person chooses to live. Next slide. It goes into a residence, a temporary or permanent dwelling, abode, or habitation where one person intends to reside, to go back and forth. So let me ask you a question. We all know that a single family home, a duplex, a triplex, a quad is a residence. Is a tent a residence? Look at the definition, a temporary or permanent dwelling place or abode. Well, there you go. Yes. A trailer. Yes. Let me ask this question. An igloo. I lived in Alaska for 4 years when my father was in the military, and the Eskimo community did live, surprisingly, in igloos. So that would still be considered residence. In addition to vacant land, any place that you plan to go back and forth to live in, that is considered a residence. And guess what? The Fair Housing Act covers that. Next slide. So let's talk about what prohibited practices are in its general sense. First of all, it's refusing to sell, rent, negotiate any member of protected class, setting terms, conditions, privileges, or sale or rental, including services and facilities, and publishing any discriminatory notice, statement, advertising, which includes online ads, social media, bidding on Instagram, Snapchat. So let me ask you this question. If you see a sign that says, "No children in the pool," is that a discriminatory notice? Ladies and gentlemen, it actually is. Why? Because it is discriminating against people with families. And I will tell you that a lot of apartments and condo associations do not know that. And if that is seen, that is an actual fair housing violation in and of itself. Thank you very much. And do not collect $200. You go straight to fair housing violation court. Next slide. Oh, before I go, I am a person, if you have a question, I am the type of person that if you have a question, go ahead and ask it, because you will forget it at the end. And it'll be like, I was going to ask you something, but I can't remember what it was. And the woman in the green jacket. Yes. It does not matter if it's this square you own it, if it's this whole square you own it, if it's this whole side you own it, doesn't matter. Land is land. All right. For fair housing laws, we're celebrating the 57th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act. So the laws that which our agency covers are, first, the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1968. Second one, Americans with Disability, also known as ADA. Also, our state statute, which is Chapter 760, it is substantially equivalent to the Federal Fair Housing Act, which is why we have the ability to have federal and state coverage. So what that means is if an individual files with our agency, not only are their state rights covered, but their federal rights are covered. So when they want to go to court, they have the option to file in federal or state court. Now, you can only do one bite of the apple at a time. Okay, you can't double dip. Also, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 is amended, and the Architectural Barriers of 1968. This gives us our foundation, our authority to why we have the right to do investigations. So who does it apply to? We talked about residents and it's temporary or it's permanent. So who do we have the authority to investigate? Public landlords, including local housing authorities, private landlords, even those that include Section 8 housing. I'm going to circle back to that one in a second. Owners, managers, lenders, advertisers, persons selling their homes with the assistance, I want to highlight, with the assistance of advertising and brokers. I'm going to circle back to that as well. Realtors, brokers, and otherwise involved in the sale and rental of housing. Anybody that's involved in any type of fair housing transaction would be covered under the Fair Housing Act. Now, as with everything, there are no absolutes. Why? Because there are exemptions, and we're going to talk about those exemptions in just a second. So when we talk about the fair housing types, we talked about the different residences. Again, we're talking about single-family homes, multifamily homes, which includes apartments, townhomes, condos, co-ops, nursing homes, assisted living facilities. They are actually covered under the Fair Housing Act. A lot of people don't realize that. Group homes for the recovery of drug addicts and alcoholics, mobile homes, trailer homes, homeless shelters, ladies and gentlemen, are covered under the Fair Housing Act. So when those little cold snaps we've been getting in the last couple months, those housing shelters cannot prevent anyone because of their protected class to, no, we don't want men in here. No, we only want the women in here. You can't do that. If there's availability, they must open that. Otherwise, they can be subject to a fair housing violation. Now, I just told you there are exemptions. There are no black and white issues. Yes, ma'am.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a provision that will be heard?
There actually is something with as far as the criminal history, and I'm actually going to address that. Did you see my presentation already? Ladies and gentlemen, that is called a teaser. So hold on to that when I will address that particular moment. So there are exemptions. The first one is nonprofit religious institutions. So what we're talking about is when you have different denominations or organizations that specifically have housing just for their membership. For example, the Baptist Church has a long history of looking after their membership. So they may have housing just for their membership as far as their denomination. So long as they're not discriminating based upon their race or their gender, as long as everyone is a part of that same religion, they are exempted from the Fair Housing Act. Also, a private club, they are exempted. Owner-occupied duplex or one-room or private home, and a dwelling with 4 or fewer units and the owner lives there. It's called the Miss Murphy's exemption. What we're talking about is the actual owner lives in that particular house and they are allowing other individuals to live with them. So long as it's 4 or fewer, then they are exempted from being investigated under the Fair Housing Act. Then what we have, which I enjoy, housing for persons 55 and older and housing designated for persons 62 and older. Has anyone ever been to a 55 plus community? Those houses are amazing. There is so much space. The counters are so high. The hallways are so wide. I mean, I know it's for persons with wheelchairs, but I said, we need this without paying their little extra money. So those individuals that live in those particular places, as far as they have exemptions under the Fair Housing Act for being investigated. Now, we talked about what the authority is. We talked about who is covered. So let's talk about the specific bases that are covered here. And I want to highlight the fact that with the state of Florida, our classification of bases mirrors the federal act. And I have to say that because if you live in other states, it is quite possible that other states may have an expanded basis on which they may investigate. For example, if in the state of Texas, military and veteran status is a protected basis under the state statute, but it's not here in Florida. Also, in the state of Michigan, height and weight is a protected class. I know some people probably want to move to Michigan right now, but it is cold up there. So when I'm talking about our law mirrors what the actual federal statute says on there. So let's talk about what they are. They are race, color, religion, sex, national origin, physical and mental disability, and familial status. Does anybody see a basis that's not up there that you say, why is it not up there? I'll give you a hint. It's 3 letters. It starts with an A, ends with an E. Age. Age is not a protected class. Let that sink in. So, remember I was talking about the fair housing exemptions for the housing for 55 and 62? So they said, well, since you don't want to protect us, we're going to build our own space so that way we can live here and we can tell y'all can't live here. Because age is not a protected class. Now, I will say if you want age to be a part of protected class, please contact your federal legislator and tell them, please add age to the protected status. But until such time, we're going to cover these particular areas. Now, let's talk about the definition of what those are, because we want to make sure everybody's on the same page. First of all, we're talking about race. This is based upon the EEO-1 report of classification of what they have established as race. So this is not something that the state came up with. We have Black, white, Asian, American Indian or Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander. These are considered all of the classifications of race. Next one, color, variations of skin tone, complexion, regardless of your national origin or race. So we're talking about because of how light I am, how dark I am. And we deal with those in the African-American community, the Hispanic community, and the Caribbean culture community. We see a lot of those complaints more in South Florida, Lee County, Naples, Collier County, Miami-Dade, Palm Beach area. So we'll see a lot of those particular type of complaints when it comes to color. Religion, a sincerely held belief, observance, or practice. This is talking about every traditional belief, Catholicism, Protestantism, denomination, Baptist, Methodist, Episcopalian, even the non-traditional ones, Buddhist, Muslim, Islam. What about Satanism? Is that covered? I hear a, yes, it is actually covered. What about tree hugging? Nature. If it is a sincere held belief, it does not have to be something that you have heard of. If someone says, I am a tree hugger, and so you must accept responsibility, we have to accept that. There is no test that says, oh, are you really a tree hugger? There's no test that says, I don't think you're a Muslim because I saw you eat that bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich the other day, so therefore you're not a Muslim. There is no test that says, what religion are you? If the individual says this is their religion and that is their sincere held belief, we have to accept that. And the housing provider has to accept that. You can side eye all you want to as you let them sign that application and give them their keys to their house. But you have to allow that. Now, sex or gender. We look at it from three different perspectives. The first one is the most obvious one, male and female, which also includes transgender and gender identity. All right, that's kind of the simple one based upon what we see. Also, sexual harassment is an aspect of fair housing discrimination. So what does sexual harassment actually look like in fair housing? Let me give an example. We know rent's getting a little high and you have to give a down payment and you have to, match that. So, if you're coming to my office and, we can work out a little something, I'll waive that deposit, but Giorgio's has a nice little spot. I think we can probably go down the street and I'll waive that deposit. That is an actual sexual harassment. Or let's do another one. You're already living there and your maintenance man is always, hey, how you doing, girl? Leave me alone. You sure looking good. Give your brother a chance. Leave me alone. Oh, come on. You want all this. Leave me alone. Property manager, you need to handle that man right there because he keep bothering me. That's sexual harassment. Or since you will not take my advances, it's normally a 3-day period for me to come and fix your sink, but I think I'll take a month. Make you think about next time you turn all this down here. That is sexual harassment. And then also sexual orientation. Now, sexual orientation was deemed a part or type of sexual discrimination based upon the Supreme Court case back in 2020 of Bostock versus Clayton County. What this is saying is sexual orientation is not a basis in and of itself. It is considered a subsection of sex discrimination. Now, hear what I'm saying. In other states, sexual orientation may be a protected basis on the state level. But as far as the federal level and here in the state of Florida, sexual orientation is still a type of sex discrimination. Now, when the legislature decides to codify and make it its own basis, then it will be added. But it's still covered, but it's a subsection of that. So I want to make sure we're very clear on that because there's still a lot of confusion thinking that sexual orientation in and of itself is a protected basis. So, and again, depending upon where you live in the country, we're here in the state of Florida, so it's not. So I want to be clear for our online audience that sees us around the nation. We thank you so much. But here in Florida, it is only sex discrimination. National origin. Two different perspectives. One, country of origin like Nigeria, Australia, Japan, or Egypt, or your culture. You may have been born here, but it's Hispanic, Middle Eastern, or Jewish, or Indian. By a show of hands, do you have to be a citizen of the United States to file a fair housing complaint? I just said here, country of origin. So if you're an immigrant here, do you have to be legal, to have a green card, to file a complaint? No. There is a misnomer that you have to be an American citizen. No, you do not. If you suffer a violation based upon your national origin or your ethnicity, that is still covered and we will investigate that particular complaint. And we do not work with any other type of organizations to find out which a person's immigration status is. It is basically sold upon were you treated differently because of your protected class. Now, I just talked about national origin and I talked about race a few moments ago is what that classification is. So if we have an individual that comes to our office and say, hey, my race is Jewish, guess what we're going to put down as their race? Jewish. Because that is how they classify themselves. Hear what I'm saying. When we have those EEO-1 reports, that is basically what the country has stated. This is what the protected classes are as far as what type of description of race. But if an individual says, my race is Muslim, my race is Islam, my race is Jewish, we as an agency are going to respect how they classify themselves as a particular race because it does not change how we investigate their particular complaint. The purpose of it is to give a classification as far as what is the reason why they feel like they're being treated differently. But if they do not identify, let's say I'm discriminated against because I'm Jewish, if they don't identify that as their race, then we're going to classify it as their national origin or their religion based upon what the context of the complaint was. And I saw a gentleman's hand there. You have to keep in mind, it is the person's identification. A lot of times we are trying to express what we think. No, it's Jewish. It's got to be religion or national origin. You can't be race. No, because we're trying to impose that upon them. Because you do have a lot of individuals that are from Israel that they feel like their race is Jewish. So that is how they classify that. So again, if that's how they're classifying it as their race, we as an agency, we're going to investigate it from that particular lens. Is it because of their race Jewish? Because the context of whatever the complaint is doesn't change that, well, it was actually national origin, or it was because of what they have identified as. The word race, the word national origin is just it's a characteristic as far as what lens that the investigator is going to look through when they're investigating their particular complaint. And that is how they are self-identifying that. And we don't have the right to tell them, no, that's not the correct classification. This is the correct classification. Uh-oh. Okay, here we go. Disability. 3 perspectives we're looking at. Physical or mental impairment, which substantially limits one or more major life activities, having a record of an impairment, or being regarded as being impaired. So having the physical or mental impairment, that's pretty much self-explanatory. You know, if they're in a wheelchair, if they're blind, we can kind of see that. Now, if they have bipolar or they're schizophrenic, you won't be able to see that. So unless they inform you of that, then that will be the mental aspect. Having a record of, that means that at one point they may have had cancer, but now it's in remission or now it's gone. But because they had information about that, they're still using that against that individual. And being regarded as having an impairment. So you're thinking someone actually has an impairment and it actually doesn't have the case. So, for example, we're looking at a 3-story building with a beautiful view over the river. And you have a property manager trying to show this individual up and they hear this person climbing up the steps. And they're like, you know, that person might have asthma. And if they have an asthma attack, they're going to fall down these steps, and then they're going to call the hospital, then we're going to have the lobby in insurance. So I don't think this person is a good fit for us. So let's just tell them this place is no longer available. Because they observed them breathing deeply. Well, the reason why they're breathing deep is because they're out of shape, and climbing up 3 flights of steps is a lot. But they were regarded as such. So what about them breathing heavy made them think that they had to have a disability? Again, that is a discriminatory act. And then finally, the last basis is familial status. And I want to make sure everyone understands what this is. It is individuals with children under the age of 18. living with parents, custodians, adoption, foster parents, guardian ad litem. It also talks about pregnant women. That is also considered familial status. It does not include taking care of older loved ones. We are living in a time period where you have individuals taking care of older individuals, such as their parents or grandparents, or even adult children that may have disability. Now, you may be discriminated against because the child has a disability, but just because of just a family as a whole, it is not considered familial status. And we do get a lot of confusion of that as far as, well, because I had to take care of my loved ones that are older, they're thinking that's familial status. Or I was denied apartment because of my familial status. And that's not actually the case. That may have been an occupancy issue, but because they're over the age of 18, we cannot use that as such. All right. Trivia time. What is the #1 fair housing basis, not only here in the state of Florida, but also around the country? Anyone? Race. Ladies and gentlemen, you are wrong. I'm gonna let that set in over disability. Yes, disability. 56%, based upon the 2022 HUD annual report from the nation, 56% of all cases filed are disability cases. Number 2 is race at 26%. So, I asked you all what was the definition of discrimination, and everyone's mind, for the most part, goes to race or gender, and actually in fair housing, it's actually disability. So, to prove that point, I want everyone to kind of look around. Just look at the audience. You can tell what race they are. You can tell what gender they are. Correct? Can you tell if anyone has a disability just by looking at them? Every last one of you all can have a disability. You see how the number can be so high? Because it's not always obvious. And here's the thing about a disability. Why, for the most part, you can't change your race from the time you're born to the time you die, without surgery, of course. But when you were born, you may not have a disability. But as a teenager, you may have a disability. Then when you get older, that disability may leave. Or you may not have a disability. Then when you get older, you get a disability. You get a disability at any single time of point of your life. All right. So real quickly, as far as our complaint process for the Florida Commission on Human Relations, is very simple. We review the complaints that come into our office. We take all complaints in writing. We investigate those complaints and we issue what's called a determination, which is called a cause or a no cause. We're basically saying that based upon the evidence that's been collected, we have enough evidence to say, yes, there's cause to believe the discrimination, or there's cause not to believe the discrimination has taken place. We receive inquiries from what we call complainants. Those are the persons filing the complaints. We use what we call technical assistance questionnaire forms. You can fill it out, go into our website, which is www.fchr.myflorida.com. And you fill out the particular form, download it, fill it out, ask you a list of questions as far as the who, what, when, where, how, why. We have intake specialists that assess the jurisdiction. That means, do we as an agency have the authority to investigate those particular complaints? Once we have established that, say, yes, we do. We send what's called a 903 charge form, formalizing saying, congratulations, complainant, you have met the requirements. We're going to investigate the complaint. And for the housing provider, I'm sorry, sir and ma'am, unfortunately, a complaint has been filed against you. Please save all documents and please answer the following questions to address this allegation. Our investigators do a thorough investigation, requesting documents, doing phone interviews, getting everything that they need to determine whether or not has a discrimination complaint been violated. Once that investigators got their information, we issue what's called a final investigative report. It's a very extensive list of all of the particular standards and bases, like did they meet the requirements? It's reviewed for our managers for review, and then we send letters saying, yes, we found discrimination, or no, we did not. And then we send those letters out, and persons do have the right to appeal that decision. They can appeal to what's called the Division of Administrative Hearings. So they basically to review the fact of, is this investigation, was it thorough enough? Did they actually hit all the particular bases? So that's the kind of the short story of our complaint. Now, for the last remaining bit of my time, I'm going to talk about these particular areas: emotional support animals, criminal background history. Told you we were going to come back to it, and Violence Against Women Act. Remember this picture for a moment. There is a difference between a service animal and an emotional support animal. They are not one and the same. How many of you all remember the big hoopla with Publix last year saying no emotional support animals in their facilities? You all see the nice little big white sign when you walk in. It's like it's on the left side. This is what it's pertaining to. A service animal is a dog that is individually trained to do work or perform tasks to perform with a person of disability. Only a service animal can be, what does that say? Dog and miniature horse. Baby Mr. Ed. That is in the statute. Do you see cat? Do you see gerbil? Do you see a python? Do you see chickens? You see a raccoon? Only a dog or a miniature horse can be a service animal. And state, local businesses, nonprofits that service must allow individual service animals to accompany persons with a disability. So let's talk about what an emotional support animal is. Well, first of all, emotional support animals are used to provide companionship to assist with persons with anxiety, depression, or any other type of disability. So just their mere presence, by them just sitting there, they are an emotional support animal. They don't do nothing, but they're providing that comfort to them. I want to highlight this word right here. What does that say? Any animal can be an emotional support animal, and training is not required because all it's doing is just sitting there. And here is where the confusion for a lot of people comes into play. Emotional support animals are not considered service animals, and they are not covered by the Americans with Disability Act. So a lot of individuals who are coming into businesses with emotional support animals, those businesses have the right to tell them, I'm sorry, we cannot accept your emotional support animals, because emotional support animals are only applicable to fair housing. Let me say that again. Emotional support animals only apply to fair housing. Yes, sir. This is the Federal Fair Housing Act. So that is across the board as far as a service animal is concerned. Yes, ma'am.
No animals are not allowed.
It depends. It is called, if you're filing under your disability, you're requesting a reasonable accommodation. So if you have a service animal or an emotional support animal, as long as it is certified by the medical doctor, which we're actually going to talk about, then that housing provider has to allow that emotional support animal. So, because number one, emotional animals and service animals are not pets. They are considered an extension of who you are as an individual. So, you know how people don't like for you to walk up on them and try to, oh, look at your hair, it's so nice and everything. That's the same thing for coming to an emotional support animal or a service animal. You just don't walk up to them and just touch them. Just, oh, this is so cute. No, no, no. If you're not going to touch anyone's arm or hair or legs, they are an extension of them. So therefore, they're not pets. So any housing provider that has a law or rule says no pets, or there's a service fee for pets, as long as there's medical documentation to support the fact that it is medically needed, they don't have to pay and they have to allow it. Oh, Lord. I saw this one and then, yes, ma'am.
So even like, if they say like, go take the
That is correct. As long as the medical provider is the actual doctor. So you can't have your esthetician signing off talking about they need this emotional support animal. So whatever your disability is, that doctor has to be the one to sign off on the documentation. And also, while I'm on this particular, because I gave this to some individuals and they kind of had their mouths drop, there is no formal documentation that has to be filled out to say, if you don't fill out this form, we're going to deny you emotional support animal. As long as there is documentation from the complainant's doctor. So you can't say, well, you didn't fill out this form here, so I'm going to deny. No, there is no form. Now, they can ask you to fill out a particular form because a lot of places, okay, just fill out this form because they have specific information they want to know. But if they don't fill out that form, but they give you something else that identifies what the need is for that emotional support animal, then they have to allow that. And also, you as a provider, as a complainant, do not have to reveal what the actual disability is. All you have to do is say, I have a disability. I'm requesting a reasonable accommodation. Here's the documentation from the doctor saying, hey, there is a need for Fluffy the pit bull, and they have to allow it. Now, if you all have me back, I can go a little bit more deeper into service animals. And I saw this question over here.
Along the line with the physical impact of
The answer is no. You cannot treat anyone with emotional support animal any different from any other tenant. You have to treat them the same way. The purpose of a reasonable accommodation is allowing them equal access to enjoy as if individuals that do not have a emotional support animal. Now, here is the thing. I like to explain it like this. Having an emotional support animal is like going up to the door. The door is locked. While everybody else can get in, but you don't have that access. Having the door to come into the access, now I'm inside of the house. But when I'm inside of the house, I still have to operate by the same rules and guidelines. So if I got to take my shoes off like everybody else, got to take my shoes off. If you don't allow your tenants to tear up, little Johnny to tear up the floor and the ceiling fans, you can't let your emotional support animal do that. If you break something and they get violated, you have your emotional support to break something, it gets violated. So they still have to abide by those particular rules. Also, that emotional support animal cannot threaten the safety of individuals, not just by its mere presence. Now, if it's causing a disturbance or attacks someone, then that housing authority say, hey, that's got to go or you got to go. But if as long as it's doing what it's supposed to do, you cannot do anything different or charge any other type of fees. I saw a question in the back.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the Fair Housing Act does not cover that. Where one person's rights begin, again, if it's that, because the reason why that service, emotional support animals there is to provide a medical service to the person that actually has it. So if it's away from that another individual is having anxiety of that, that's not affecting that individual. Now, hear what I'm saying. Most persons that have an emotional support animal are aware of the fact in terms of it may cause anxiety upon others. And so they're going to take reasonable steps to ensure they're not going to cause disturbances to everyone else. So let's be clear about this. So we're not talking about renegade individuals for the most part, because there are always exceptions. And I talked about having an interactive process. That means that when an individual presents the fact that, hey, I have a request for a reasonable accommodation, I need you to provide that for me. So they can't just say no, slam the door, and there's no type of engagement. If there's no type of engagement, that can also be a fair housing violation. Yes, sir.
I have a sister who had a work.
Again, if medical documentation from their doctor certifies that there is a need for that particular goldfish or whatever to be an emotional support animal, that housing provider has to amend that particular rule. So it's not saying everybody can do that. It's just saying the only reason why it's there is because for a medical reason. It's not just because of that's what I want. Yes, ma'am. That is the biggest challenge. The Fair Housing Act is in conflict with a lot of particular rules, and there's actually court law cases that actually challenges and wins against insurance companies, because insurance companies can actually be listed in a complaint. So not only can that complainant file a complaint against the housing provider, but that insurance company can also be filed as well, because they are disallowing this housing providing from allowing me to have my emotional support animal there because of their insurance. And that is the biggest issue that they're dealing with, because the only reason why I'm not doing it is because my insurance says they're going to drop me. And that's in conflict with the Fair Housing Access in terms of having emotional support animal, but because of a breed or having pets or any type of animals. So that's the aspect where insurance companies are now starting to be litigated, and they're losing because of that. Again, we understand why insurance companies want to have that for safety purposes, but the only reason why that person should have that animal is before medical reasons for their disability. So that should be a exception, not the norm. So
When it comes to pets, no.
you asked a question concerning about an animal. I'm going to answer that for you.
When it comes to pets, no country in the world comes close to the United States. Dogs are America's favorite, followed by cats, fish, and birds. CBS's Steve Hartman goes on the road with a pet that didn't quite make the list.
When you see an alligator coming down the street towards you, it's only natural to either drop your jaw or panic that he'll drop his. But alligator expert Joe Henney says his alligator poses no threat.
I've never met an alligator that will not bite you. You fool around the head like this, their instinct is to grab you. He does not do it. You can reach in there, rub his tongue. He refuses to close his mouth. We don't know why. Yeah, there you go.
Wally was found in a pond at Disney World. He had to go. And since in Florida it's illegal to relocate alligators to another spot in the wild, Joe agreed to take him in. Today, Wally lives on Cheetos and chicken legs in Joe's house near Hershey, Pennsylvania, without a cage.
Good boy.
At this point, I should probably say what should go without saying. Don't try this at home. Joe says there may not be another alligator on the planet as gentle, and certainly no other as cuddly.
I don't think I'd be here right now if this was just another guy with an alligator. Not that there's a whole lot of those out there, but there's a special bond between you two.
Very special. He is my emotional support alligator.
You heard right. Emotional support alligator. A few years ago, after Joe lost some people close to him, he says he fell into a deep depression. And about that same time, he says Wally began behaving differently, more affectionate, almost like he sensed his depression.
I laid on the couch and I wake up, he'd be laying on my head. And I knew it for a long period of time because I had his whole jaw print on my face.
You don't wake up when you have an alligator on your face?
I was so depressed, I did not.
It also marked a new chapter in their relationship. Joe started bringing Wally everywhere, from the doctor's office to the drive-thru. He's been to a splash park and was even ring bearer in a wedding. They are together day and
Anybody need a groomsman?
night too. And as a result, Joe says his depression is dramatically improved.
I'll get lonely and stuff like that there, and he seems to sense that stuff, and he'll come up and give me a hug, and makes me feel loved.
He may be an alligator, but I can attest, those are not crocodile tears. Steve Hartman, on the road, near Hershey, Pennsylvania.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Exhibit A, Wally, the alligator. All right. So, couple more areas and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Criminal background history. This is talking about denying individuals because if they've been incarcerated, being convicted but not incarcerated, or they've been arrested but not convicted. One of the things that HUD has been doing in the last several years is they've really been putting an emphasis on cracking down on housing providers that are using a very blanket or facially neutral practice that's saying, hey, if you have that dreaded check off, have you been ever convicted of a misdemeanor or a felony? And those that have been involved are breathing, do I lie, get away with it? Or do I tell the truth and get denied? And the reason why is because HUD has recognized, based upon statistical data, a lot of individuals that have fallen in those categories that I just mentioned have particularly been minorities. So in an effort to combat that, because minorities have been targeted, it's called basically on the face of it, it seems, well, it's very neutral, but it's actually hindering because it's focusing on a particular group of individuals. So any intent on using criminal history to deny housing, it may violate the Fair Housing Act. So what does that look like? So we're talking about backgrounds has to be nuanced. Yes, sir.
My landlord did charge me to a criminal background.
Well, let me explain that, and that may answer your question. So what HUD is saying is it's not illegal to have a background checked, and I'll explain in a moment. But you have to be able to demonstrate the difference between individuals with certain types of convictions that are legitimate, and non-discriminatory. You have to be able to distinguish criminal conduct that demonstrates risk and safety to residents and property versus property and criminal conduct that does not, taking into account the nature and the severity of the recent crime. So DUI, that's you get arrested for it. But how does a DUI affect how good of a tenant you are or a landlord? But it's on your record. But that blanket statement said, hey, I got convicted of a DUI. Also, how long ago did that take place? Another example, stealing. Yeah, I don't think we would want anyone that's stealing to live in my apartment complex. However, I was convicted of that at 18. I'm now 49, but it's now still being held against me. So now we're dealing with how recent of an activity did that take place. Drug possession. Well, actually, we don't really do the background checks. We actually send it out to a third party, and they are the ones that figure it out. That third party can also be named in a Fair Housing Act violation, because if they have an algorithm that is still discriminately holding out. And also, again, we just said nuance. Now, federally wise, marijuana is still considered to be illegal. But in the state of Florida, for medical marijuana, it is legal. So at the time, that may have been a discriminatory as far as an arrest, something to be arrested for, but now years later. So it has to be nuanced. So it's not saying you can't have a background check, but it does depend upon what the nature is and the severity of it. Now let's go on the flip side. We talk about the very hardcore things. What about check fraud, writing bounce checks? I don't think a housing provider wants somebody that don't know how to pay their rent. That's a legitimate reason to, but you had to do your due diligence. You just can't say, oh, misdemeanor, don't want them. Oh, felony, don't want them. You've got to do a deeper dive. And if there's evidence to show there's not a deeper dive, then it's a possibility that you could be in violation of the Fair Housing Act. Does that answer your question, sir? Okay. All right. Violence Against Women Act. So this is something that's very recent that the Biden administration just reauthorized on last year. And it's basically saying providing housing protections for persons applying for or living in units subsidized by the federal government who have experienced domestic and dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking to help keep them safe and reduce them from the likelihood of homelessness. So this is talking about basically anyone who's experiencing these particular areas that, let's say you're in a bad situation, and as a result, you're leaving that situation, but you can't get into this new place because your credit score was affected because you were trying to get away from that individual. Well, there are provisions under the Fair Housing Act now that if you can show that, hey, I'm a victim of domestic violence, sexual assault, or I've been stalked, I need assistance for that. And it does not have to be someone you're married to, related to, or living with that perpetrator. So this is talking about areas that deal with public housing, housing choice vouchers, project-based Section 8, home investment partnership, home care, continuum of care, and housing trust funds. So this is extremely specific, dealing with persons that deal with HUD programs. So if it's an individual that does not have anything to do with federal housing, then unfortunately this aspect of the law would not be applicable. But if you're dealing with a housing provider that does any type of federal programs, under this section, if you are in a place where you are unsafe because of this particular act, it can allow you to live someplace else and you cannot be denied because of that. And this is something that's ever growing and expanding. And I wanted to introduce that information to you because you may be hearing that more and more in the coming months. Any questions concerning the emerging topics? You all have been asking some wonderful questions, and I hope I've been able to answer those questions. So if you need any further information, you can reach me at area code 850-907-6822. And my address is my name, Dante.Bonner. That's D-A-N, not O-N, please. ANTE.BONNER at FCHRMyFlorida.com. Yes, sir. That's called a disclaimer. That's a very loaded question. And it's also multi-layered. One of the responsibilities that I have and other providers is to let people know what their rights or responsibilities are. A lot of times complaints are not being filed because of a couple of reasons. Number one, they don't know what they don't know. So making them aware that their rights can be affected. And then also, two, not believing that the system is going to work. And a lot of times the reason why they're seeing it is because it ain't gonna happen. They just, doing that kind of talk. But we have evidence to show that, yes, these actions take place. But the also thing, too, is to educate the people in terms of there is a difference being mistreated just because they're just bad managers. They're just bad housing providers. That actually happens. But unless a complaint is filed and investigated, it won't reveal whether or not that is the case. So when enough complaints are filed, that's going to put those housing providers on notice. Like, you know what? I'm tired of answering these complaints because that's costing them money because they got to provide a response. So it may not resolve that particular complaint, but it will also bring awareness to the fact that they need to tighten up as well. The other fact, too, is the more complaints that are being filed, a lot of these cases are going to court. And so as more cases are going into the court system, that's also opening up and making persons aware of the type of challenges. The question was already brought up concerning about insurance. So a lot of times, a lot of change cannot take place until it goes through the entire process. And part of the problem is the fact that persons are unwilling to go the long journey as opposed to that. So making persons aware will increase the complaint process, but it also will also make housing providers aware of the situation that may change how they do their housing practices. And you have a follow-up.
Yes, again, solution because they have started to attack those kind of developments, but those kind of
Here's one of the things that everyone needs to understand. The Fair Housing Act is law. it is specifically codified that you cannot be treated differently because of those particular reasons. Now, I know that an offshoot of diversity, equity, inclusion is an aspect of it, but as far as the Fair Housing Act itself, it is what it is. And there's also law, case law, not just in the federal level, state level as well, that says you cannot treat individuals differently. That's law. So if an individual finds himself in that with proper legal counsel, and that's another conversation for another day, their rights are going to be protected. That is kind of, it's similar, but it's not the same as diversity, equity, inclusion. That's an offshoot of that. So the beauty about this, it's in the law. It is the law. And there's case law that supports that. But again, if individuals don't know that, with all of the systems that you're saying that's talking about that, there is an aspect of getting despair and hope. But my job is to remind individuals, no, it's the law. And it's been the law. But when individuals don't exercise their right to do so, then that's where the problem comes into play. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a sprint. And I think oftentimes that's where part of the problem is individuals are wanting immediate relief. And this is a long marathon. And there's plenty of examples where there is actual support and vindication for that. Prime example, and I'm gonna get to this question in this one. Prime example is this past year with loan appraisals in California, where the appraisal actually won, and they're getting $1 million settlement because of being discriminated against, because of their racial, because of being Black, because their house appraised lower. So the process does work. It's just the fact that it is a process, and because individuals are not wanting to walk out the process, that's also a challenge too. But we have to get the word out as far as this is what the law says. This is not an opinion. This is not an interpretation. You can Google it. You can pull it up. You can read it. It's there. And until the federal government changes the law, we're going to follow what the law says. Antoine, and then I saw another question.
So piggyback the last question people who have today's political climate.
Because there's a political aspect to it, no one knows. That's just the flat out answer. The only thing that we can talk about is what is currently, as of today, right now. It's in the law. As we all know, anything can change as far as if the law has changed. And once the law changes, then we have to reinforce. But until such time, again, not only is there the act, there is case law. So what you're talking about and what others are talking about, that has to be fought in a court of law. And as a state agency, we are only charged in terms of what does the current law says. We have our general counsel here. We have our housing manager here. We have some of our other housing staff. We follow what's already been in process, in existence. And as it stands right now, this is what we're doing and this is what we're following. So those cases that are in violation, we're writing cause based upon the facts. And so as of today, we are being successful in doing that. Despite whatever the attacks may go going on, that's on a political level. But right now, as far as an administrative agency, that we are being empowered by the Federal Fair Housing Act, we're just walking that through. And if that happens, then we will adjust and pivot accordingly. But as of now, we have the authority. I saw a question over here.
My question is, 5. And you find
No, we do not do that. As an administrative agency, we are neutral, so we cannot provide any type of advocacy for or against. So once we have indicated based upon the evidence presented, it is a no cause, we offer them, you can appeal the decision to the Division of Administrative Hearings, but then we are taken out of it in terms of any type of recommendations. With that said, within our process, and I did not discuss this, we have what's called conciliation, where we have the opportunity for parties to try to come together and see what would it take to resolve this complaint. Sometimes it's a matter, it's a misunderstanding. Sometimes it's a matter of, look, all I just wanted was a ramp to get into my house. That's all it was. Well, look, all I want, give me my deposit back and I'll be on my way, whatever it is. And we are finding that when we're offering conciliation, that because cooler heads have finally calmed down, they'll actually work those things out. And we're seeing our conciliation numbers rise so we won't have to investigate those particular complaints. So that's another avenue that we do have as an agency that HUD is actually mandating across the country, that they want all housing providers offer conciliation. We don't want to have to investigate because sometimes all it takes is a conversation. But we don't give any recommendations as to what someone should or should not have authority to do that. Next question over here.
Yes, did your agency work closely with
No, we work in terms of educating the public, in terms of this is what you can and cannot do on a wide scale. Again, we are not advocates, but we're going out across the state and saying, doing these type of conversations as far as to make sure this is what you do, this is what you don't do. Because keep in mind, if there's people in here, everyone's not going to agree. Everyone's not going to see the same thing. And they're going to sometimes misunderstand each other. So we're basically saying, hey, complainant, here are your rights. But guess what? Housing provider, you have rights as well. And so as long as everyone understands that, so that's from that particular aspect we will go, but we don't advocate in terms of working with a specific organization to make sure, unless they're asking for training information, which we provide that. So if anyone wants that particular information, they can come and see me and we'll go ahead and have that conversation with you all. I think there was another question I saw, unless I answered it. Okay. If there's nothing else, I thank you for you all's time and happy Fair Housing Month, everyone.
Thank you, Dante. Did you all know about that conciliation piece? Yeah, I didn't know that either. That's handy. I love that. All right, so I want to acknowledge our city officials in the house. Mayor Pro Tem Curtis Richardson, thank you for being here. And Assistant City Manager Abena Ajateo, thank you for being here as well. Are there any other officials that I may have missed? Okay, I don't think so. All right, we are going to take a little break here. So stretch your legs, make that call, use the facilities, check out the vendor tables, and we will be back at 10 o'clock. Okay, so a little break right here. All right. We're going to bring it back. Hopefully you all have enjoyed that break. So there is a brief video that we're going to share, and then we'll have some remarks by our Mayor Pro Tem Curtis Richardson, and we will then prepare for our panel. So we have a video about the Fair Housing Act.
Few in the nation believe that fair housing would in our time become the unchallenged law of this land. And indeed, this bill has had a long and stormy trip.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life
Ladies and gentlemen, Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight in Memphis.
The death of the prophet of nonviolence set off the worst outbreak of arson, looting, and criminal activity in the nation's history. Washington's ghettos burned within a few blocks of the nation's capital.
The life of a man symbolized the freedom and faith of America has been taken. And no words of mine can fill the void of the eloquent voice that has been said. But this I do believe deeply. The dream of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has not died with him.
President Johnson was willing to speak up and say, we have to pass a fair housing bill.
Hello, Mr. President. Yes, Dick. We're in trouble. We need some help. Yes? I'm afraid of that.
Federal troops, for the first time since the Civil War, took up positions to guard government buildings.
Nothing's probably touchier than your own neighborhood and your own home or your own apartment. The administration, which supported the bill, said this has no chance. The other stuff is okay. But this will kill any politician that touches it.
Well, I just could not live beside them. I don't feel that they should be oppressed. But I moved here because it was a white community.
I have 2 daughters and 2 sons. And if there's too many colored people around here, I definitely will get out.
I think that all the property values will immediately go down if they're allowed to move in here in any number.
It seems as though our country is pulling apart into separate societies, where whites have jobs and Negroes have unemployment, where the middle class lives in suburbs and the poor are left in the ghettos, where one group of Americans looks upon another group of Americans with growing mistrust and even dread.
Then the bill went over into the House Rules Committee, and under the chairmanship of the famous Judge Smith, a right-wing segregationist from Virginia, he wouldn't hold hearings on it. He would take the bill home so nobody could act on it, and we were running out of time.
Thousands flowed through the rainy streets of Memphis this day, finishing a march that Dr. King planned to lead in support of striking garbage workers.
How many men must die before we can really have a free and true and peaceful society?
But you're a practice law. And I know you're rich out there. Take mine. You take our hand.
The death of Martin Luther King is a tragic thing, but no legislation should be passed as a memorial to anyone.
In spite of the riots, I am going to support this legislation with all the vigor that I possess.
The laws that we pass up here are for all time. The Martin Luther Kings come and go.
The public reaction to this horror gave the sensible members of the committee a compelling argument that the House Rules Committee had to report that bill out. And I think that's how we got our bill. They just didn't dare bottle it up any longer.
I have a dream that one day
Negroes would be able to buy a house anywhere that their money was carrying them. At long last, fair housing for all is now a part of the American way of life. Democracy's work is being done, and the bell of freedom rings out a little louder. We have come some of the way, not near all of it.
Fight still goes on because we unfortunately have the laws, but we don't have the enforcement. And we have changed, but we still have the same kinds of discrimination.
The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights said today that efforts by federal agencies to end housing discrimination have been generally superficial or incomplete.
President Carter has ordered federal agencies to use all means possible to strengthen fair housing programs.
For the first time, people with disabilities and families with children will be protected from housing discrimination.
President Reagan signed legislation today designed to toughen up the nation's fair housing laws.
Why did you take part in this demonstration today? Just because there was a huge crowd, or did you have any personal reasons?
Well, I took part in this march today because of Martin Luther King and what he stood for. Because this march is what he died for.
Know what he stood for?
Yes. He stood for nonviolence and peace for all men, for all families. And I think if he died for it, I could carry out what he started.
All right, next we will have our Mayor Pro Tem Curtis Richardson, and we also want to acknowledge City Commissioner Diane Williams Cox as well. Y'all give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Nicole, and good morning. I'm Curtis Richardson, the Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Tallahassee, and with me this morning now is my colleague on the commission, Commissioner Diane Williams Cox, and we both, first of all, apologize for being late, but we've had other stops before getting here this morning, but certainly would not miss this for anything in the world as we celebrate Fair Housing Month here in the City of Tallahassee and throughout this great nation of ours. As you all saw, of course, from the video, it was a hard-fought fight to get to where we are today. And as Commissioner Williams Cox mentioned to me in the hallway there, it's being taken away, y'all. We've got challenges all over just trying to achieve what has since been called the American dream, but in a lot of instances is becoming a nightmare. When you think about all the obstacles now that are individuals and families are being faced with trying to afford housing, adequate housing in our neighborhoods and in our cities and states throughout the country. It's a challenge, but I can tell you the City of Tallahassee is certainly committed to making housing affordable and accessible for those who want to be housed. And I use that term is because I had an opportunity to travel with our host team, the Homeless Outreach Services team. And there are homeless individuals out there who they don't want housing. They want to be where they are in the woods behind Walmart and other places that they have chosen to habitate. And so, but for those that want to be housed and want affordable housing, we want to make sure that it is available for them. It is the second priority in our strategic plan, second only to public safety, and they rival each other very closely in that respect. And so I want to thank all of, well, first of all, I want to, again, I'm sure they have been acknowledged, but I want to acknowledge our wonderful housing staff led by Assistant City Manager Abena Ejetayo. She had to leave, but we've got Dr. Kimball Thomas in the back of the room. We've got Jean Holmelson. And if there's others, pardon my oversight, but they do a fantastic job of working with our housing partners in the community. I want to recognize, I don't see her now, Karen Miller there's Karen, with the Tallahassee Lenders Consortium. I serve on that board. I'm also, Jean is our staff person for the Affordable Housing Advisory Council, which I serve on. So as you all can tell, certainly my primary goal has been to make housing available and affordable for those who desire that. And we're going to continue to work with our partners, including Habitat for Humanity and others, to make sure that that happens, again, for those people that want to be housed. But there are many challenges. I was talking to Cassandra, we were talking about insurance costs now and property taxes, how they're going up. So it's a challenge, and we don't want to go back to where things started during Dr. King's days. We can't let him down. We've got to continue to fight to address discrimination in housing, and again, to make it affordable for those who desire that. So thank you all for what you do in whatever your respective roles are. I see our chairman of the TLC board, Gary. Thank you for being here this morning. And so thank you all for all that you do to help us in this regard. And I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox.
Thank you. And I just simply want to say, keep up the great work. Our Mayor Pro Tem has done an excellent job, and he serves us well. He represents us well. Folks say, they want to be Mayor Pro Tem, but you have to be willing to do this work wherever it comes to be Mayor Pro Tem. It's not ceremonious. There is work in doing this job, and we love doing it. And I love working with each and every one of you in doing it. It is just so interesting. Just recently, I saw, I think it was on CBS, may have been Morning News or what have you, about what's happening, how things are slowly being rolled back. So you got to stay woke and you got to pay attention. Homes in certain neighborhoods are not being appraised as they are in other places. And when they learn that they're homes of African Americans or others, those homes seem to have less value in some areas. But our job here in the city of Tallahassee is to not let that happen, because every home is a valued home, and it is how we build our economic wealth. It is how we pass this on to the next generation. And so I know that everyone in this room, we're working on the same team to make sure that we help folks find their home ownership. And Karen, you can fault me, because when folks tell me that they're looking to buy a house, or I give them your number. And in fact, in the shop one day, I was getting my hair done, and the young lady said, "I'm going to own a house this year." I said, "What are you doing about it?" "Here, you need to call this person right here." So she called and asked for Karen. And of course, Karen wasn't there, but her staff person said, "Well, you called to ask for the head. I can help you." And they began the application process right there over the phone. So, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. I say that often because I know that is true. And so what we want to do is make sure for those who want housing, they have access to housing. And if we learn that someone has been denied that access, then we'll make sure that the light gets shined on that and make sure that that doesn't happen. Not in our town, not in our city. We want the best for everyone, great quality of life. And I see my homie in the back there. I'm not gonna call the nickname that we had in the neighborhood for him. But let me just tell you, when I started school, he lived on the street one street over. When I started school, my grandmother had him walk me to school. That's how much she trusted him. So I'm going to tell you, Quentin Williams, you can trust him, because I know where he came from, and so I'm glad to see he's on the team. And so he understands. He knows from where we're from in Quincy. Home ownership was a big deal. It was a big deal. It still is. And so let us know what we can do to help keep things moving in the right direction, moving our city forward. And before I leave, let me just share with you, tomorrow at 11 o'clock, we will be doing the groundbreaking at the corner of Orange Avenue and Meridian Road for the South Side Transit facility. Please come. The Marching Raiders from Rickers High School will be there providing music, and Big D's Barbecue. Free food. Did I say that? Free food. So if you're not otherwise occupied here, please come on by and help us celebrate what's happening on the South Side, and not just the South Side, but in the city of Tallahassee. Thank you.
Nicole, let me first of all apologize to Greg. I think I might have called you Gary, Greg. I apologize for that, our chairman. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Commissioners Richardson and Williams-Cox. All right, so in moving along with our theme of putting the act in action, we're going to move on to our next presentation. I'm going to ask the panelists for the home buying process to come forward, and I will read your bios as you do. And I believe that is Lavelle, Doherty, Quentin Williams. All right, if you all will come forward as I read your bios and prepare for that topic. I wanted to also check in with our online. Were there any online questions or comments? Okay, cool. All right, because we are online for those of you who are at home. Okay, Quentin Williams. Quentin, with a diverse professional background, has been involved in both the mortgage and real estate profession for over 30 years. He is a licensed mortgage loan originator and licensed real estate broker. Quentin is a graduate of the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University with a BS in management, a MS degree in management information systems from Barry University, and a certification in public management from Florida State University. He currently serves as a mortgage loan officer with the Tallahassee Lenders Consortium, also known as TLC, where he promotes and certifies first-time homebuyers for the city of Tallahassee and Leon County's down payment assistance program. Quentin enjoys gardening, woodworking, and a good game of chess and watching football and soccer. Y'all help me welcome Quentin. All right. And Lavelle Doherty, Quentin, you can sit down. Lavelle Doherty has 37 years of experience in all aspects of personal finance, from remedial financial counseling all the way through productive financial counseling. He is currently a home ownership specialist with TLC, serving as a homebuyer education facilitator and teacher. Lavelle has had previous loan officer and mortgage loan originator experience. He is currently a certified housing counselor and certified reverse mortgage counselor for the agency. He also has experience as a loan collection specialist and has knowledge in personal bankruptcy law. Help me welcome Lavelle Doherty. All right. Ms. Karen. Okay, all right. Well, you all are welcome to have a seat. Have a seat. Is a mic? Quentin, the mic is right there on the, yes, okay.
Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today? Doing well, doing well. Well, what we're going to speak to you about today is home ownership and some of the components that's necessary for home ownership. I am going to speak to you about how many of you ever made a cake or attempted to make a cake? Think about all the times, or there have been times when you gathered all of your ingredients, right? You got everything that you think that you're going to need, and you find out you have a missing item. Can you make that cake at that time? Now I want you to put it in another perspective, that In order to purchase a home, there are certain things that we understand we have to do. One is we have to get our credit straight, right? Two, sometimes we have to get a little bit of education about it. But imagine that you've done everything that you need to do. There's one thing that will still prevent you from owning a home. When I first started in real estate about 30 years ago, average starter home in this area was about $75,000. Now that's the starter home. Today, that home costs you anywhere from $175,000 to $200,000. What does that matter then and now? Back $75,000, 5% down, about $3,500. I mean, we got to put it in perspective that was still a chunk of change. Today, if we look at the down payment assistance that's required on a $175,000 house, it could be anywhere from 3.5% to 20%, depending on how much you want to put down. But it's easy to say, well, you got to put this amount down. What if I don't have it? What if I don't have the funding in order to make that final step, to take that final step to home ownership? Well, fortunately, living in a community like ours, there's something called the down payment assistance programs from Leon County, City of Tallahassee, and most lenders will have their own down payment assistance program. I'm glad that Zach is able to join us because he can explain maybe some of the things that regions will have. But let's talk about the City of Tallahassee's down payment assistance program.
Quentin, before you do, let me go ahead and introduce Zach.
Okay.
Zacharias. Zach McMillan was born and raised in Miami, Florida, moved to Tallahassee in 2007 to attend FAMU, where he obtained a degree in psychology and a degree in philosophy. Not long after arriving to Tallahassee, he quickly appreciated the immersive sense of community of North Florida. It is this same communal adulation that propelled him to his current role as community mortgage loan officer with Regions Bank, where he serves as the Greater Tallahassee area through volunteering, instructing homeowner education courses, and serving on 2 local boards. A communicative and inclusive approach serves as his staple when working with clients to ensure they understand and feel empowered when purchasing a home. Y'all help me welcome Zach McMillan.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for having me. Please excuse me for walking in late. I think I may have had the wrong time down, or we were running very proficiently as far as time. Typically, I wouldn't do this, but hopefully y'all forgive me. It's my birthday today, so hopefully y'all forgive me because of that. So, yeah, typically I don't like to do birthday shouts, but yes, thank you all so much for having me, especially sitting on the panel with TLC, one of the great community partners when it comes to down payment assistance, and just kind of tag along with what Quentin was saying, not just Regions themselves, but there are a number of banks in our community who offer different type of grants and have different type of programs, some like the Home Ready program with Fannie Mae, the Home Possible program with Freddie Mac, where these first-time home buyer driven programs, allow for lower down payments like 3% down payment programs and discounted mortgage insurance to help keep the mortgage payments a little bit lower. So there are a number of, I'll say, opportunities, especially now with banks and credit unions focusing on CRA lending and different aspects of serving lower to moderate income communities available for borrowers looking to purchase homes. So I'm not sure if that's a good segue based off of what Mr. Quentin was saying. I know that TLC is a great partner of ours when it comes to down payment assistance as well. But I'm going to give him the mic back so he can finish his thought before he forgets.
Again, one of the things I want to make sure we understand is there are down payment assistance programs in this community. And a lot of these programs are very beneficial and helpful to people who would like to purchase a home. Again, let's look at the City of Tallahassee's program, which I happen to love. I am very familiar with all of the lending programs and their down payment assistance program. But I will tell anyone, when you look at purchasing a home, remember I said the average price of a new home is $175,000, correct? So City of Tallahassee says, well, if you want to purchase a home, we will provide assistance up to 20% of the purchase price for your down payment. Think about what I just said, up to 20% of the purchase price, which we stated was $175,000. If you do quick math, how much is that? $35,000. That is a 15-year, 0% interest forgivable loan. In other words, if you stay in the house 15 years in a day, that loan is forgiven. Now, that's the benefit on the backside, on the 15, after the 15 years. But the most important part about that is you now have the money to help pay for your closing costs, your down payment assistance. And guess what? The city allows you to be able to say, okay, current interest rates might be about 7%. Your lender can use part of that money to be able to buy down the rate some. So you might be talking about a rate now of 6.5%. And that 0.5% can make a big difference, which Zach will speak to you about later, in terms of your monthly payments. So there are a lot of benefits to it, and I would encourage anyone, if you know someone that wants to purchase a home, please contact TLC regarding the down payment assistance program. It is a benefit that I love being in the community, because when you're out and you're speaking to someone about down payment assistance, you will hear people say, I bought my home through TLC 30 years ago. TLC helped me buy my home 20 years ago. We had one gentleman to come through. He came through the program. He had a son to come through, one son, two sons. It is a program that benefits the community. We love the stories where we have someone who purchased a home and now they're selling that home to someone who's getting their down payment assistance for the first time. Again, if you know someone that wants to purchase a home, needs down payment assistance, please contact the city community Tallahassee Lenders Consortium. Okay, with that, I'm going to pass it over to Lavelle so he can.
I just want to talk about the education aspect of what we do at the Lenders Consortium. I came down here to go to school in 1980, graduated in 1986, went to work full time, decided I wanted to be a homeowner. This is 89. There was no Lenders Consortium in 1989. I had no clue what I was doing, none whatsoever, and I was scared to death. When you give a notice to your landlord and your apartment has been rented out from under you, and you don't even find out whether or not your loan has been approved until the day before you're scheduled to close, that's scary. And because of the Lenders Consortium, it doesn't have to be that way. We take you in, we educate you, we groom you, tell you what to expect throughout the whole process, the different steps. And it's holistic. It's what we are. It's what we do. You know, it's the whole body, so to speak. So I just wanted to mention that, among other things, is that homeownership is the real deal for a lot of people. For some people, it's not. They don't want to be a homeowner. But for those who want it, we help you get there. That's what it's all about.
Is it okay if I stand up and talk to y'all? I sit all day behind a computer in the office, so it's hard for me to, keep sitting most of the time. So excuse me. I work a little bit. I can stand up and move around a little bit, but just to kind of touch on, I'm thinking about, I was just leaving a meeting with our community development officer for the state of Florida with Regions, and we were talking about something similar to affordable housing. And I know that this is the Fair Housing Seminar. And so as I see President Wills back there with the Tallahassee Association of Realtors, I was here for an event with them with some of the initiatives that we have. So I just want to touch on a piece as it relates to the consumer, the home buyer. One of the biggest aspects I like doing of my job is being able to teach at the home buyer education course with Ms. Lavelle. And I always applaud the individuals for coming out, especially on Saturdays, sitting those 8-hour courses and educating themselves about home ownership. a lot of times what'll happen is someone will say they want to be a homeowner, go through the process, and sometimes it's very transactional on our side, whether you're a realtor, whether you're a lender, appraiser, whoever. It's very transactional. We're about to make sure the job gets done efficiently. But a lot of times when you're a homeowner, you go through that process, you submit your documentations, you submit your money before you know you're at the closing table, signing paperwork, and you got your keys and you're so thrilled and you don't have any idea what you just did. So I always applaud people when they take the time out to educate themselves about what they're actually doing, the debt they're about to accumulate, the benefits of owning a home, some of the downfalls, some of the costs that may be associated with owning a home, and also making sure you take the time to find the right program that suits you, making sure you find the right loan officer that's going to get you what you're trying to accomplish. I tell people all the time, when you're buying a home, you are the first time, if you aren't a boss, this is your first time being a boss. You're picking your realtor, you're picking your loan officer, they're finding your program. So these people should be working for your best interests. It might be the only time you get a chance to tell people that you're fired and hired. And so education is a huge component, especially as it relates to fair housing, because a lot of times, we'll take the advice of these professionals, and most people in our area are very professional. They are trying to do the right thing by consumers. So I can't say that much, but it's always pertinent of the consumer to take the time out to educate themselves as much as possible about the transaction itself. That makes any sense at all? Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not talking too fast. I get excited and I start talking fast. Another aspect, as we talk about fair housing, I know that especially where we are right now in 2024, houses aren't cheap, and they don't get much cheaper any further. However, it's a great thing. Any homeowners in here? Yeah, great thing if you're a homeowner. You're probably still a good amount of equity. The statements probably look real good right now compared to what you owe, compared to what your home was worth. But for a first-time home buyer trying to get into the market is creating some difficulty for them, especially with interest rates having crept back up on us again. We got property taxes that went up. We got homeowners insurance that's going up. I mean, it's like we get fight on all fronts, unfortunately, when it comes to owning a home, right? But we're in a great spot. I'm connected with a couple of other loan officers in different communities, and we're in a great spot here in Tallahassee because of the communal nature that we have here between the different local and county and city affiliates, between local down payment assistance companies, your mortgage lenders, your realtors. Everyone's well connected to Habitat for Humanity. Everybody's well connected with the initiative of trying to create home ownership, especially here in Tallahassee. And so as you all, I don't know most of the individuals in the room, so as you all are working towards talking to consumers, talking to your affiliates about home ownership in Tallahassee, please let them know that there are resources here. Sometimes it's not as well marketed as it should be, but I assure you there are resources here like TLC to help and allow people to obtain home ownership like they may desire to, okay? I can keep going if y'all want me to, but I don't want to take up these gentlemen's time because these are some trusted officials when it comes to home ownership with TLC. You have some questions for us? I see Ms. Karen here first. Oh.
We have that class twice a month. What we like to do is we like to do it on a Wednesday and a Thursday night for those who can't take off work. So we do 4 hours Wednesday, 4 hours Thursday. We also, one time per month, will do a Saturday class, which is in person. It's at the American Red Cross. In fact, this past Saturday, I had my class for April. So we have, with the Lenders Consortium, to go through the Tallahassee Lenders Consortium's program, there are 2 required classes. There's an orientation class, which typically is about 2 hours, and that's where you learn all about the Lenders Consortium, the various projects that we have going on, the different things that we're involved in. And then the 8-hour homebuyer education class is pretty much comprehensive. We have speakers that come in. We'll have the property appraiser's office come out, a realtor, a lender, environmental people that come from the Florida Department of Health, as well as inspectors and homeowners insurance people. So we have speakers throughout the day to keep it lively. So, did that answer your question? Thank you.
No, I was One of the things I do want to say is I mentioned the down payment assistance program. It is an income restrictive program. In other words, you cannot, as a single person for the city's program, you cannot make more than 80% of the area median income. What I mean by that is right now, if the income guidelines are $48,150 annual salary. So if you make $48,151, unfortunately, you might not be able to qualify. Well, you won't be able to qualify for the city's program. But as soon as I tell you that, then I want you to start thinking, let me speak with my lender because they got programs. The Florida Housing Finance Corporation, they have programs to help you. Again, if you want to own a home, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it. There are too many resources out there now between the lenders, between the home ownership center at TLC. If you want to own a home, I tell people when they come in our door, the only reason you don't own a home at a certain point, after a certain time, is you didn't want to own a home because we will work with you. We have a counseling center that you come in and say, hey, it's a little jacked up. I know it. I've faced it. I've accepted the responsibility, but now I want to do something about it. So send me to your counselors. We have counselors that they're going to be a little bit, on the honest side with you. You sitting up here with a $400 person, you got $20 in it. What's that wrong with that problem? You eating out DoorDash and doing all these things and you don't have money in the bank. What's wrong with that? That's what I used to call that grandmama love. We're going to give it to you like you need to hear it, okay? I love you, but I'm going to tell it like it is. Again, it's designed to be able to put you in, it's designed to be able to put you in a position where you want to own a home, you're going to lock arms and walk with you till you cross that finish line. Only thing we need is for you to make sure that you stay locked arm in arm with me because we're going to be here. Owning a home, I don't care what anyone says. We want to make it seem like, I hear these things, now we don't want to own a home. Why do you want to own a home? Everyone that lives in this great country of ours should want to own a home. Right. Everyone. It started off as a man's home is his castle. Not a lot has changed, okay? When I go home, yeah, I got issues sometimes and stuff, but that's mine. There's a peace of mind that as long as I pay my mortgage and I pay my taxes, that's mine. And there's nothing like being able to invite your friends over and recite that Eddie Murphy thing when you have friends come over and say, time to go home. Now, he doesn't say it like that. I mean, he really, anybody know that joke? It's like, got to go. That's the benefit of owning a home, folks. The Sunday dinners, the Saturday afternoon barbecues with the family. Those are the benefits of owning a home. Again, there are resources in this community that can allow you to take care of what our ancestors fought for, what was put in the law for us to be able to take advantage. If you want to own a home, you can own a home. I'm sorry, Ms. Karen.
You all just see, they came out as a communal part of all of this, and it is. I sit around this room and I see the housing experts for the city of Tallahassee and Leon County and surrounding areas. Let me just say, we have Habitat for Humanity, another housing opportunity. We happen to be partners with them because we provide the counseling for all of the people that come through their program. Again, looking at Antoine and Nicole, who work really hard for that program to ensure that sweat equity, to ensure that volunteers come. And what better way to be able to say the barbecue at the house when you know that I help put my windows in, I help paint my room. Again, another housing opportunity. One of the ones that TLC fell into back in 2019 is that the city and the county came together and they decided they had a affordable housing work group who came up with a recommendation of a community land trust. And at that time, they held a proposal, and there were about 4 agencies that applied, and TLC happened to be one to administer the city and the county's community land trust. And so now we have one, and that program is a little bit different. And I'm going to tell you, not all people agree with it, but it's another affordable housing tool for low to moderate income people. And it's great. And the other side of that, just let me give you an example. We actually sold our first community land trust home a year ago in February. And the actual 3-bedroom, 2-bath house of almost 1,200 square foot home appraised at $264,000. And we went, wow. We were like excited that it appraised that much. But in a land trust, what happens is that we actually took the price of the land out of the home, the entire deal, because we were trying to make the home more affordable. So the price of the land at that time was $30,000. So from $264,000, we subtract $30,000. It brought the price of the home down to $234,000. Again, we talk about the communal spirit of this community. The city of Tallahassee gave to TLC some construction subsidy money. Now, y'all remember construction during COVID went sky high, and all of us were wondering how we were going to build houses with the cost of lumber, the cost of labor, just everything had gone up. So we took that $50,000 and we put it in that home. So guess what? The price of the home came down to $184,000. So again, a little bit more affordable. Remember, Quentin talked about some years ago, the average price was $175. In last year, this time, we were at $184. Well, guess what? Because we were working with low to moderate income folks, what we did was we're looking at people that the income was under that $48,150 or right at that. And we found a homeowner who actually got $36,800 in down payment assistance. $36,800 in down payment assistance. Then guess what? The lender that she was working with said, well, let's give her another grant. And they put another, I think it was $5,000 on top of that. And so now this young lady has been in her home for a year. It's the community land trust home, but remember, I'm going back to the land now. So she owns the structure, the actual building, but TLC owns the land, and she rents the land from us for $25 a month. This is a program, and the goal is to work with people who are low to moderate income to assist them in getting into home ownership. Well, guess what? Her mortgage was close to $1,100 instead of almost $2,000, or what we calculated may have even been $2,600 at the time for a home that had appraised at $264,000. And you know, I get an email from her every once in a while, especially those first months. I love my home. I love my home. And you know what? I went to do the 1-year evaluation of her home, and we can't evaluate as a part of the program the inside of the home unless you invite us in. I'm concerned with the outside, making sure that the land and the property is still in good condition, and it is. But she said, come in my house. Let me tell you, I wanted to invite her to decorate my house. fabulous, immaculate, clean. So we're excited about that. We just put a 25-year-old 25 in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. Again, that just closed the first part of April. We have a house, a paired home on Ridge Road at this time that is for sale for $160,000 each unit. It's 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Each unit, and the prospective homeowners can get down payment assistance up to the 20% of the purchase price of the home. That is a community land trust home. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't go out and buy your own home, an existing home with land belonging to you. You can do that. You can still do that. And the down payment assistance program is still available. Hometown Heroes through Florida Housing Finance Corporation. Anywhere in the state of Florida. I would love to keep everyone in Tallahassee, but sometimes people come up here, they go to school, but they want to go back home, but they don't own a home there. They can still purchase a home. There are other agencies across the state very similar to Tallahassee Lenders Consortium. And so they provide education programs as well. They provide down payment assistance. They provide development where they are building as well as affordable rental also. So please keep it in mind. We want you to come and invest in yourself, invest in your legacy, invest in your community. That's what this is all about. And again, the communal part of it, we are a homeownership center, so we have realtors. I look at Alyssa right here, she's one of our realtors that we work with. We have lenders. As a matter of fact, right now, there are 20 lenders that work with us. We have we're up to about 12 realtors that work with us. We can refer you to insurance companies. We can refer you to anybody that is willing to work with someone that is a first-time home buyer. And please understand, not all programs are for first-time home buyers. The city of Tallahassee has an inclusionary housing program as well, and you can be a second-time home buyer. They also have a program with Premier and with Bolus where you can go up to 100% area median income. There are other programs through the Escambia Bond Program also that you can be a second-time home buyer. So there are opportunities, and I agree with Quentin, with Zach, with Lavelle. You cannot say that this community doesn't have it. We have it, it's available, and I think there's something for everybody. So guys, I'm turning it back over to you.
Still good on time? And what I want to ask Zach is, Zach, if you had a buyer coming to you, what would you want them to know in advance of coming to you? That's why I'll pass that.
Okay, you gotta love Miss Karen. She asked me to speak because she didn't want to, and she got up here and speak anyway. But just to close out your question about the home buyer education, of course, I do believe that TLC has a very pertinent one. There are some online education courses. Fannie Mae has one online. Freddie Mac has one online. TLC is really good because you actually get a chance to get in front of lenders here locally, realtors here locally. When I do mine on Saturday, I get put behind Miss Melissa Cobb sometimes, which is kind of tough. And then they also put me in front of lunchtime, which is also kind of tough as well. But at least you get the opportunity as a home buyer to get in front of these actual individuals who can help you with the process and answer your questions directly. So that program is really good. To answer Mr. Quentin's question, one of the biggest pieces, well, let me say this as well. A lot of the programs and efficiencies that we have in terms of down payment assistance and funding grants, they are income driven. I know that Mr. Quentin mentioned that as well. And I say that because I look around the room and you are very well dressed. So I'm not sure, how much money you all make. But if you're here representing somebody, you're going back having this conversation with your constituents, it is important that they know that these programs are income driven. We are looking to help those people who are low to moderate income, who need help with fair housing. It's hard. It's tough to argue to a bank or a company when you're making, $250,000 a year that you need down payment assistance. Maybe like we said, we need to sit down and look at your other finances if you aren't able to save money, But to answer your question, the biggest pieces I always kind of preach to, especially in our education course, is there are three big aspects that lenders are looking for when getting ready to purchase a home. The first thing we're talking about is your job. And that, not so much you being on your job for 2 years or, how long you've been working there, but having a stable career path. If you're an electrician, being on that career path of being an electrician, working for a company as an electrician, knowing that, hey, God forbid I lose my job, I can go get another job as an electrician. So the first aspect is employment. The second has to do with credit. This is still America. We do still base a lot of things off of credit, including housing. So that's the next piece that, Mr. Quinton mentioned, that we know we're looking at score, we're looking at established credit, we're looking at what's on your credit report. How much debt do you have taken up your income, and is there room for a mortgage? And then the last piece is probably I won't say the least important, but still is important, is the money. We're looking at how much money have you saved? Do you have money for down payment? Okay, you don't have money for down payment. Do you qualify for some of these grants or down payment assistance programs? So to answer Mr. Quinton's question, that's kind of the three big pieces that we're looking for when we're working with buyers getting ready to purchase a home, okay? Oh, yes, ma'am. Well, I'm going to get this young lady here, and then we'll get you to you in the back, brother. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
In terms of education,
Can you address that?
Things change within the other pieces that we utilize. PLC is a food counseling agency. And one of the requirements that it's given to us in Neighborhoods America is they want us to get an 8-hour class. That's one requirement. The other is that they also want our certificates to be 1 year because they feel very strongly that nationally things change. And a lot of people don't know about NeighborWorks, but it's a national agency that receives their funding from Congress. And they have a very strict training regimen that all of us are a part of, as well as getting funds from HUD too. And with reference to HUD, we follow those guidelines. As a matter of fact, our homeownership specialists have to be certified by HUD as well. So that's one of the reasons our things are really kind of tight when it comes. And even if someone, let's say, came to us in 2022, we ask them to come back even for our homebuyer readiness class because the city's down payment requirements may have changed. This past year, Leon County did not have a down payment assistance program, but they are getting ready to spring one on us. They called us this week about training. So we're going to be coming out to the public about Leon County's programs soon. So I just think that's the reason why we want to make sure that we keep the requirements, because that's how we receive the amount of money that we receive for our.
Two questions. First one, when you were doing the TLC, I've actually did with you all 10 years ago, and it's a wonderful program. What are the typical challenges that when you're coming in, what are the typical things that you're telling your clients? Was it credit issue? Income aspect, that's the first part. The second part, because the income is very, I'm finding that because of the income, individuals are not wanting to live the care what they can afford. They want to live in healthy. Where they live.
Affordability is a big issue in the state of Florida. The cost of housing going up. And to be honest with you, the income has not increased proportionately to the affordability. I can give you a good example of what I have seen as of late. Senior citizens in the state of Florida are finding that their taxes and their homeowners insurance is skyrocketing. And as a result, a lot of senior citizens are leaving the state of Florida. They're moving back up north simply because of the property taxes and the fact that the homeowners insurance companies are pulling out of the state of Florida. Increasingly, from a personal standpoint, I'm seeing lots of senior citizens now doing reverse equity mortgage loans simply to get rid of their mortgage payment, to generate income, going back into their pockets. And, you know, it's just the insurance and the taxes are really a major problem in the state of Florida.
I'd like to address the last part of your question about the people saying they don't want to live in certain, what I can afford. Again, that's why I have to give a nod to TLC, because we are building new homes in those communities, homes that are affordable. And you'll be surprised at what one house can do to a community. You take a house where the neighborhood is maybe on the downside, but someone buys a house and fixes that home up, puts it back up for sale or whatever. You know what that what the neighbors start doing? The neighbors start to address their homes. The neighbors start to take care of the maintenance, the lawn in their homes in that community. So when you get TLC going in and building a new home in that community, all of a sudden people can say, hey, not only am I getting something of value, but I'm also being a catalyst to improving my neighborhood. Again, Ms. Karen spoke about the community land trust or the shared equity program that I spoke to. I call it the shared equity program. When I might not be able to buy a house because my income doesn't allow me to, but all of a sudden there's a property over there that I can get into, a brand new home. All of a sudden now that I don't want to live in that neighborhood starts to have a different meaning to it, because I can get a new home. What I'm going to do is what we do is encourage people, make sure you take care of your home. If you take care of your home, again, you'll be surprised at what that neighbor next door will do to their property. And then when we start building one house in a community, two houses in a community, and all of a sudden now we're putting 15 to 20 homes in a community, we change the face of that community. So I agree with what you said, but I think that there are organizations, there are builders and developers that think like us, that every community offers an opportunity. And if my opportunity is to be able to get me a new home, I think it's something I'm going to perk up and pay attention to.
I'm not sure how much time, but I do want to touch on your piece a little bit from a lending standpoint. I do believe if you can hold this, the second part of that question, because I did read the itinerary for today, and there are 3 really good realtors coming up after us, if I'm not mistaken, who could probably touch on the aspect of navigating finding a home for buyers with a maybe lower purchase price ability. But I can say from a lending perspective, we are bumping up into that difficulty, like the Bell mentioned, of higher homeowner insurance, higher property taxes, higher interest rates, and steady income. You know, so I have a perfect example. I have a young lady now, works for the state, $4,000 in income, $48,000 a year. It's good income for Tallahassee. However, what she can afford is a little bit difficult. And I can say the biggest piece that I tell people try to control, I can't go to her information specifically, but car payments. Car payments are the biggest disruptor in terms of affordability. Perfect example, I had a young lady, she couldn't afford as much home as she wanted to afford. And when we had that conversation, I told her, listen, let's see if we can navigate and knock some of this stuff down. I got an alert a couple of weeks later, she went and bought a car and got a $600 car payment. You know, so yeah, you look and say, yeah, exactly. So that's one of the biggest factors. Obviously, we have, a lot of people have student loans. But fortunately, there are a lot of good programs with the student loans that we can help minimize those payments, whether it's the income-driven repayment and help lower your payment. There's ways around student loans. There are ways to help pay down credit card debt. You know, but once you get that car payment of $500, $600 a month, you know, 6 years, 7 years, it's hard to combat that when you're talking about trying to couple a mortgage into that with higher homeowners insurance, higher property tax, and higher interest rates. So there is some difficulty. I will admit to that, but of course, it falls back to what Mr. LaBelle was saying about, Mr. Quint was saying about the individual and knowing that, hey, I'm trying to purchase a home. Let me do what I need to do to help put some things on, and that kind of goes back to the education piece as well. What do I need to be doing to help clear us up to be able to become a homeowner? So I'm not sure if that answered that first part of your question, but I do think that's absolutely. Yeah.
That shape city revitalization program that also assists with that to help areas that quote unquote less desirable, because the people that are living there, those are their homes, they take a lot of pride in that as well. So that's the conversation I think also has to go along with not buying the $600 car payment, you know, when you're trying to get a home and things like that, because what you don't know, you don't know. And then it's too late in requiring those systems, which that's accountability aspect that cannot be dismissed. You know, there are real obstacles in front of us.
I do think that second part of that question would be really good for the realtors who are following us up. Absolutely. I'm gonna get to her question because I'm gonna get to you. I'll see you back there. Yes, ma'am.
In the spirit of their thing, you talk about from the lender's perspective, or how you address concerns where people may feel discriminated, but they're being denied.
Absolutely. You all want to touch on that first, or you want me to? Okay. I jokingly tell people mortgage lending is probably more regulated than gambling. You know, we are watched to the T in terms of our applications that come in, who we are accepting, who we are denying, but there is a still concern and fear about, okay, I don't want to apply because, you know, I am a minority or I am of lower income and they're automatically going to deny me. I can speak from a lender's perspective in terms of the compliance calls that we're on, the emails that we have come through. Like I said, as a regional bank, more than ever, especially since 2008, we are watched to the T about who we are approving, who we are denying, even from a application standpoint, who's applying with us. Are we getting enough low to moderate income individuals applying with us, or are they scared to come to us because we pretend as if they don't exist? But there is that concern. So I can't advise your constituents when they put in their application, whether it be for a pre-qualification, pre-approval, or application to buy a home, be sure they are answering those demographic questions in terms of their ethnicity, their race, and their gender. Those questions aren't on the application for us to discriminate against individuals underneath that category. those questions are there so we can report that to Consumer Protection, the CFPB, to make sure that these individuals are actually lending fairly to everyone, regardless of their race, gender, or ethnicity. But we'll get those applications to Melissa's point about individuals who are. I do not wish to disclose. I do not wish to share that information. I always encourage people, if they can, put that information on the application, so that way when we send the information off to the CFPB, whether it's Regions, whether it's Wells Fargo, Truist, whoever, Mickey Mouse, mortgage company, whoever, that make sure they're holding them accountable of lending fairly to every individual who are applying with them, okay? I'm not sure if they answered your question or not. Okay, the young lady in the back had a question real quick, Ms. Karen.
And you said or is there any sort of help to help eliminate some of the debt, or is there any way that it changed that so there is access to help eliminate debt that was not, or put us in a situation that our credit score is not?
Well, I'll say that. I'll say this. I'm gonna pass to the TLC staff, because they have a credit counseling piece to that. It is difficult, when you have those. And I think we all know identity theft is at a rampant. It's kind of crazy now. You scared to even put your picture online somewhere. To be completely honest with you, there are resources. I think the biggest part is staying prudent on top of your credit. AnnualCreditReport.com allows you to pull your credit report once a year for free, no charge. You can pull all three. And I encourage people to stay on top of those so you know exactly what's going on with your credit report. A lot of people don't like Credit Karma because it doesn't give you the most accurate score. I do agree, but at least allow you to keep up with activity in terms of inquiries, in terms of information going on with your credit report. I think the biggest part of that is staying diligent about what's going on with credit. I talked to a number of people and I asked them, hey, what do you think your credit score is? And I'm not quite sure.
No.
Oh, go.
Or I know you can prove that you did not acquire that debt.
Yeah.
So, or
That's a tough one. I'm gonna let Ms. Karen chime in there. That might be a question for one of the elected officials in the room.
We have templates for letters and everything that you could be assisted on. To get the credit, the other party that is reporting into the authorities for criminal prosecution. Also looking at consumer protection. I know one of the things that we try to do is keep our clients abreast of scams that are coming on. But I think Zachariah told you correctly, with staying on top of your thing. I don't know if government money, because that's the funds that we receive, can assist you with your debt. But if it's legitimate debt, that's one of the reasons for the counseling session, is to assist you in trying to get that debt down and helping you. We even follow clients for months, sometimes a year, having them come back and forth because we're trying to coach them in getting their legitimate debt down. But I understand your frustration because we're living in society now. The other day, I had someone test my credit, my bank account for $1. And just so happened, because I kind of stay on top of things, my bank declined. And then I called in to say, what's going on? They said, we think somebody's trying to get into your account. And then they were so good, they ended up declining things I was trying to do. I had to go back. And so now I'm waiting on my new debit card to come. So, in my household, we have a practice that we go online at least 3 times a week to look at our expenses. But if you want to take that a little bit further or something has happened, please see me afterwards, because I do know that our counselors, we have written templates to help you, especially with the credit. Yeah.
And I do agree with Mr. Quinn. That is a tough one and I see Mr. Curtis Richardson in the back there. It's a tough one for funding for something like that, because I think it's just so difficult to try and argue. So that is a tough one. I'm sorry, I'm positive we can't answer that a little bit more directly. Yeah, I think the young lady in the black jacket had a question right before. Did you have a question, young lady? Okay, go ahead.
They require to file a police report and do certain things. But people, I don't want to get. Well, if you don't file a police report, then the lenders look at it. It's like, well, they sure did. You didn't file a police report. You didn't tell them that they stole your credit card. They're doing certain things, and so that goes back to a partnership situation. Identity theft and suspect it's only from your family members still not reported. Yes, that's very right off of your friend. It's not strings attached. There's some bureaucrat who's got the book in order to get those. Again, I don't know of any program that give you money to pay down the debt, especially if you build up the debt. Those are the kind of things they look at. Again, if they talk about here, again, from my perspective, they go back and look at a lot of stuff. And a lot of stuff because of the debt, it builds it up. You got the $500 purse or whatever you're doing. They look at those kind of things and who you charge for it. So again, TLC can help you with a lot of that.
Quickly.
But some of that you have to kind of take on. And if you got a family member that steals your credit card, you need the people around you with that.
So Keisha, let me clarify, because I know exactly what you're talking about, and it is that you have acquired debt as a result of the death of a loved one, correct? It's no theft going on. It's debt as a result of someone dying. Her loved one passed and passed on this debt to them, which included land and taxes and all of that sort of thing. Okay. Quickly, Quentin, please make your point.
I just want to make a quick comment about, someone asked about the discrimination. And Zach, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but most of us lenders work on a commission. So think about it now. If I'm working on commission, am I quick to try to deny your loan, or am I trying to get your loan approved? So I don't want you thinking about the lender itself, the individual that might be out there, but we work hard to get you approved for your loans. And that was just a comment that I wanted to make.
All right. Thank you. Yes, Karen.
Very and we go over some of the information that Dante shared with you this morning, and to also ensure that you're remembering that information. We've also given text and that we ask our clients to turn back into us. Also know that when HUD comes to review us, they review those exams as well. So fair housing is super important, and it's all across the board. And that's our part of ensuring that those that are coming through to try to purchase a home is aware of their rights. And we do it at the very beginning because fair housing is not just about home purchase, but it includes renters also.
All right, thank you. So can we please give a round of applause to our panel? The educator, the down payment assistance counselor, and the lender, talking about the home buyer process. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us today. One of the things that I'm not sure was mentioned, but is anybody aware of what the HUD guidelines are for income limits, what the income limits are? The new ones just came, not you, Karen, not you, Karen. The new ones came out on April 1st. So for a single person, what the 80% of area median income, what it is for this area. And this area is Leon, Jefferson, and Gadsden County. No TLC person can answer this question. Yes, ma'am. So it just went up to 49,700. Okay. For one person. For a family of four is 70,950. Does anybody know a teacher, a firefighter, a police officer, an EMT that's making $49,000 or less? Yes, lots of them. It's lots of people. It's a lot of folks that qualify for the things that they were talking about today. Family of four making $70,000 or less. Yes. Anybody knows? Okay. So I'm just making that point in that the income guidelines for this area to qualify for many of the programs is pretty high. And when I say high, I mean, we're talking folks that are making about a single person just under $50,000 annually. Okay. All right. That's it. You all may go to your seats now. All right. We're going to take a little break. Be back here at 11:30 and we'll get started with our third presentation of the day, which is a real estate panel. So you got a break? Okay. Do we have everybody here? I see Walisa, I see Danielle, I see Greg. Daryl. Okay, there he is. All righty. All right, our last presentation of the day. I don't know if we saved the best for last or what. Yeah, the panelists are nodding. They're saying yes, we did. All right, so Fair Housing Realtors Point of View. So I will introduce the panel. I ask you all to come up after I've read your bios. The first one is Greg Lane, a certified real estate appraiser and a licensed real estate broker in the state of Florida. He is the current owner of Timberlane Appraisal Incorporated, where he has worked for 30 years. His articles on real estate and appraisal have been published in local magazines and newspapers, and he is often called to speak to organizations like the Tallahassee Board of Realtors and the Mortgage Bankers Association. Past accolades include Realtor of the Year, Affiliate of the Year, past president of the Mortgage Bankers Association of Tallahassee, past chairman of Growing with Tallahassee, past MLS chairman, and past board member of the Tallahassee Board of Realtors. He has also served in a consulting role with the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulations on many projects. Mr. Lane has served on the board of TLC for about 7 years and is the current president of the board, Mr. President. And when not working, he enjoys spending time with his immediate and extended family, most of whom who live and work in Tallahassee. Welcome, Greg Lane. You're welcome. Next is Danielle Andrews. She is the broker and owner of Realty One Group, Next Generation in Tallahassee, a full-service real estate brokerage serving Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. The office opened in 2022 and has since grown to more than 25 agents, as well as expanding to operating a property management division of the company. Danielle is active in several professional and community organizations such as Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Tallahassee Board of Realtors, and the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Danielle possesses a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science from the University of Central Florida, a Master's of Science in Education Policy and Evaluation from Florida State University, and an Education Specialist degree in Education Leadership from Arkansas State University. In 2023, she was one of 50 finalists in the National Association of Realtors 30 Under 30 competition, as well as the 2024 Tallahassee Women Magazine's Women Who Mean Business Innovator Award recipient. Danielle is also a loving wife and mom. In her spare time, she enjoys spending time with her family, volunteering, trying new restaurants, watching movies, and swimming. Welcome, Danielle Andrews. Daryl Willis is a graduate of the Florida State University. Any Knowles in the house? Ooh, Will, sorry. No Knowles? Not one? Okay, there we go. Thank you, Keisha. Where he received his business degree in marketing. As a track and field athlete and school record holder in the high jump, Daryl began to hone his marketing and negotiating skills by representing himself as he pursued a professional career in track and field and trained for the Olympics. Oh, wow. After his track and field career at FSU, Daryl pursued a career as a professional sports agent where he spent 4 years representing himself while pursuing his Olympic dream and 10 years at the two largest sport agencies in the world, representing some of the top athletes in the NFL. This is where his negotiating skills were sharpened and he became a classically trained negotiator. Oh, wow. I didn't even know that was a thing. His sports agent experience has prepared and trained him to think outside the box, hear what's not being said verbally, and become creative in crafting deals for his clients. With over 14 or 18? Daryl. Years of real estate experience and 30 years of negotiating. 19. All right, clap it up for 19 years. After 19 years of real estate experience and 30 years of negotiating experience in assisting hundreds of clients sell and purchase tens of millions of dollars of residential, commercial, and investment properties, you can count on nothing less than expert knowledge of the market and a superior negotiated contract. He is known for his patience, creativity, and tireless effort to ensure his clients achieve their desired outcome. And his motto is, there is no such thing as a dead deal. It's only a deal that requires innovation where all sides are elated at the conclusion. Welcome, Daryl Wills. And last but certainly not least is Miss Walisa Cobb. She began her career in the affordable housing industry in 1999, where she was the administrator of first-time homebuyer programs at the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. She was responsible for overseeing the daily operations of this statewide program, and it was this experience that launched her desire to obtain her real estate sales associate license in 2005. Today, Walisa is the broker and owner of Cobb Realty and Investment Company, a boutique real estate brokerage established in 2007. Walisa holds a bachelor's degree in business economics and a master's degree in public management from the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. Devoted to her community, Walisa has served on the United Way Income Council, was the treasurer of the Frenchtown Neighborhood Improvement Association, and chaired the Leon County Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. She is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. A few of Walisa's accomplishments include 2021 to 2023 National Association of Real Estate Brokers Top Producer, 2019 Tallahassee Woman Magazine Women Who Mean Business Award winner, 2018 Big Bend Community Development United Housing Partnership Empowerment Community Civil Rights Award recipient, 2018 Tallahassee Democrat Volunteer of the Year nominee, 2018 Tallahassee Democrat Top 25 Women to Know, and 2017 to 2023 Top 5% of Producing Realtors. And while Lisa's spare time, she enjoys traveling and spending time with her family. She is the proud mother of daughters Kiara and Imani and grandmother of Harlan J. Welcome, Walisa Cobb. All right, so there is a mic in front of you all. And we'll get started with a round of questions, okay? So for the real estate sales agents, what steps do you take to ensure equal access to housing opportunities for all clients, regardless of race, ethnicity, or any other protected characteristics?
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll take that question. As a real estate broker and a sales agent, it's important. It starts with education and training and it ends with education and training. I make sure that all of my agents are familiar with the fair housing laws, that in every transaction, everyone is treated fairly. And in instances, and they do occur, where conversations come up about protected class issues. So for example, the best way I can give you this answer is through an example. When we have potential buyers that come along and say, well, I don't want to live on the south side, or I don't want to live in a Black area. As a real estate professional that is knowledgeable of the fact that that's a protected class, I have to spin that conversation, do some training, do some education, and make sure that potential buyers know that I'm there to serve them, to have a transaction that is fair and equitable, but it's their decision. I can equip them with the information about the demographics of a subdivision. But we all know that people end up living where they can afford, right? So a lot of times what dictates where I show a property or where a realtor directs a family to is based on what they can afford. There are things that occur as it relates to fair housing and discrimination that we'll all talk about as it relates to the protected classes, but we as real estate professionals have to be careful when we're having the discussion about, let's say, a protected class familiar status. I may say, are school zones important to you? So I'm not saying, do you have kids, right? We're not going to have that conversation because that's a protected class, but I will ask you questions, or a realtor should be asking those questions where we get the answers, but we're getting the answers not to discriminate against you, but to provide the best service that we can. And that's my best answer.
Thank you. Sure.
Okay, you talk about and I'm sure we're in a total with that. So sometimes out the legal way consistent terms of more money, keep people on the thing about not just one basic
Monday through Friday job, Saturday, that there are other ways that you can increase your salary that you can start a business or show other ways that maybe they don't in a certain area or how to increase your level of consider your income to allow you to have a better, bigger, or different location for the house. If
Yeah, that was a loaded, a loaded question. No, no problem at all. The first thing I want to speak on is affordability, and when you think about affordable housing. So as my bio said, my background is affordable housing. And so when I think of affordable housing, I'm not thinking about a home in a certain neighborhood or a home in a certain price. I'm thinking about the resources that are available through the city, the county, Escambia County, Florida Housing, the different resources that would then make that property, wherever it is, affordable for my client. Now, when you move into like ways to increase income and things like that, realtors really don't delve that far into financing. But in the instances where we have potential buyers that they just don't have enough income, or their debt to ratio, it may not even be the income, it may be the debt. Sometimes we do have those conversations about reducing debt, but for the most part, we're referring them back to the lender, and we partner with lenders that are knowledgeable and will create that plan to help them get to where they want to be.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next question. For the appraiser, how do you ensure that your appraisal process is free from bias and accurately reflects the market value of a property? Can we dive right in?
No, yeah, that's a loaded question. But, and I can't speak for every office, but I have some great colleagues in town. We have a great group of appraisers in town, but in my office, we spend a lot of time being involved in events like this. We don't have to be. As a certified appraiser, you can sit in a basement of your house and do appraisals and call the shot, so to speak. You might only meet the homeowners. But we like to be involved in, like I'm involved in TLC. I'm proud to be part of that. And I'm proud to be part of the board of realtors. I speak to builders, et cetera. And when I'm at those meetings, I talk to people. I've talked to people today. I've learned just listening up here today. So that's important, but it's not required. That's what we do as an office. But what we also do in our office is if we have, let's say this is a small town in general. So if I get a call to appraise a house for somebody I know well, and this just happened today, we'll turn it down because there could be conflict of interest or some bias. Might I appraise that house some more because I know that person? So we turn it down, and this happens often. The good thing about a small town is we know a lot of people. The bad thing is if we know somebody too well, we can't do their appraisal. I've actually had my wife's boss's appraisal came to us. I turned that down. One of my family members' appraisals came to us. We turned that down. Likewise, if I've had a disagreement with somebody or an argument of some type, and I just don't like that person, or I think they might not like me, I would turn that appraisal down. And that's happened recently as well. I mean, hopefully I don't have too many of those situations, but we've had some. And so I just don't want there to be any hint of any kind of bias or conflict. So we turn it down. Now, if it's somebody I know business wise, like if I were called to appraise one of my realtor friends' homes, I might be okay to do that. But I would ask them first, do you feel there's any bias here? Because we're regulated by the bank and many other agencies as well. So we can't. But what a lot of people don't know also is that we take at least 30 photos of every house we're at. Okay. So yesterday I took 156 photos. I appraised 3 homes yesterday, or looked at 3 homes yesterday. When we do that, that means that not only am I looking at these photos in this house, but somebody else is as well. And that somebody else could be in Atlanta, they could be in Virginia, who knows where, and they're reviewing my appraisal. So if I'm taking photos and on the wall you have, let's say you have some political words on the wall, for example, I'm not going to ask you to take anything off your wall, but I had a case last week where these people had a big 2-acre yard and they had a a political candidate's name in 5 letters spelled out across the yard. I'm talking 5 feet tall, like big wood letters. And I said, I don't have any problem with that, but if you don't mind, let's take them down or just flip them over so that when I take the photo, who knows who the underwriter is that's reviewing this might have a problem with that, right? So let's do that. And I had somebody last week also had a poster in the window. Didn't bother me at all, but I said, if it's okay, let's just take that down for a moment, just to make sure there's no bias, not from me, hopefully it's not from me, but also from somebody else who might review that appraisal. And also I had a case 2 weeks ago where the gentleman had a prayer room. I want to respect that room. And I, of course, I take my shoes off at the door, walk through the house, ask him if I can go inside the room. But at the same time, his particular religion may not be somebody else's. Doesn't bother me. All I care about is what kind of wood floors are there. Is there crown molding on the walls? Is there drywall? The rest of that doesn't matter to me. I'm there to appraise the house. The person doesn't matter, but I have to enter the home and I have to take these photos. So I asked him if I could take a photo from an angle. I asked him to look at the photo to make sure he was okay with it. He was, because again, that's going to be seen by somebody else. And I'll end with this. In addition to our office policies and the way that just generally I operate, we are governed by an alphabet soup of agencies. I think Zach said earlier, mortgage lending and gambling are regulated. The only thing regulated more than those is appraisal, because I'm regulated by FREC and the appraisal board, by FHA, HUD, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and every underwriter who reviews our appraisal. So there's all sorts of regulations there. So everything I do is transparent. It's out there. The only thing we don't do now when we appraise a home is take a video. And I think that's going to be next. Because right now we're taking a lot of photos. Everybody can see them. But I think at some point we'll be asked to take video of, say, the roof to see the condition of the roof, make sure we do a 360 to see if there's a tarp on the roof. I've had that question, things like that. So, but on top of that, we also have artificial intelligence is making its way into, it's been in our business for a long time, but the artificial intelligence will flag certain words in an appraisal. And I had to write these down because there's so many of them, but these are words and phrases that will be flagged in appraisal are desirable neighborhood, because that could be subjective. What's desirable to one may not be desirable to another. Crime-ridden area, if it's not backed up by statistics, even then, what does crime-ridden mean, right? That could be subjective. Affordable neighborhood, integrated community, good neighborhood, pride of ownership, well-kept, safe, walkable, and middle income. Those are all words and phrases that Fannie Mae will flag in an appraisal, send back to us and say, take these out. Because again, my appraisal should be objective. And if I'm putting any type of phrase in anything about crime, for example, I would need to have demographics, not say my feeling is this is heavy crime or not, but here are the demographics, period. It's a long answer, but that was a great question.
Yeah, I like that, the flag piece, because I have often wondered that in terms of who can say if it's desirable or good or walkable or well kept. So yes, Walisi.
So I just wanted to add to what Greg said from the realtor's perspective, that we heard earlier, some cases where African Americans' homes were appraised at a lower value than others. And so the truth of the matter from a realtor's perspective, and I'll let the other realtors say what their experience is sometimes I go in to help someone sell their home and I may ask them to take certain things down. I hope we get to the day that I don't have to do that. But because I know the problem exists, I have them just remove anything that's personal, whether there's African-American art, a picture of your family. And I do this so all families, I feel we put properties on the MLS and it goes all over the world. So some things just should be sacred and not be online. But as a realtor, I have protected my clients in those instances where I just ask them to remove anything that shows what their race is.
I totally 1000% agree with that. And the reason for that is that we have to, in order to affect change, you have to tell the truth. And the truth of the matter is these biases are here. I'm going to say something that a friend of mine say all the time. when I walk into the room, I can't un-Negro. I can't un-Negro. I am who I am. And sometimes those biases tend to, some people, it's not everyone, but some people, that does something to them. So when we're listing a house or talking to someone about that, we absolutely talk to them about, we shouldn't be. As my colleague and friend said just now, it's like, we hope one day that does not happen, but we have to tell the truth because you cannot affect change without telling the truth. And the truth of the matter is, I just listened to something the other day. This gentleman said, African Americans have been affected over, I think it's $100 billion as related to housing. Because we're getting some things. I know it personally. We lived through it. My wife and I lived through it where the appraiser came, got it, and the appraisal was jacked up. 19 years in the business. I know what the number probably should be. I'm not an expert like they are. But when you give it to me, like, come on, man. But that's the kind of stuff that we deal with. We just have to tell the truth so we can actually begin to affect change. But when we sit here and act as if all of this stuff is just great, it's not. It's not great. We came from a position of, we have NAREB, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, which the three of us are a part of. We come from they produce every year a SHIBA report, State of Housing in Black America. And they talk about all of these different things. And then we talk about the gap between, it's all ethnicities in there, but the gap between African Americans and Caucasians. And we're like 49%, and I think they are like 71%. And we compare ourselves and we sit and we're like, man, we're doing bad. And I said, I just look at it a little bit different. We're not doing bad. You give me a 246-year head start when we had no pay? I think we're actually doing pretty good. You give us another 100 years of low pay? No, we're doing really, really good to be where we are. And so we have to start talking about the truth about these things so we can really, truly affect things. I've known Mr. Lane for a long time. He's the best of the best. Unfortunately, everybody doesn't think like him. That's the problem. I'm not trying to put everybody down, but unfortunately, they do not. If he came to my house, I could leave. I could just go because I'm good. If he say, Daryl, listen, this is a piece of trash you got. Okay, it is. It's what it is. Okay. But some of them, man, you're looking at it, it's like, I remember talking, I'm going to say this and I'm going to be done. But when the guy came to my house, he's like, he had been talking to me on the phone and he's like, oh, yeah, I think I remember you from FSU. Then when you get there, I can't un-Negro. You thought I was a pole vaulter. No, I'm a high jumper. So, see, and immediately this stuff begins. And again, it's not every time, but if we don't, as real estate professionals, we don't protect our clients and try to get them the most out of that, they're losing money.
Daniel.
Sorry, one more thing. I know we are probably over time on this question, but I think it's so important because appraisals seem to be an area of mystery for a lot of the public and often one that people have some of the most important questions on. And recently I had an experience, manufactured homes, which can be just a doozy within themselves to sell, to appraise, just all of that. And so anyway, a particular buyer was purchasing VA. There are certain minimum property requirements. And the repair, the appraisal came back subject to repairs. And this repair was saying that it was requiring all new skirting around the home. And we couldn't figure out why. And truthfully, first, we all overlooked it because of like how it was positioned on the report in comparison to the few other repairs. It was just really inconspicuous there, I guess. And so, anywho, long story short, when we really started delving into like, because I think how he had it worded, we weren't sure if he was asking for certain sections to be repaired, the entire skirting and things of that sort. And as we started kind of pressing a little bit more, it was coming across that, so they're in those minimum property requirements, add in anything you need. It's pretty specific, right? This or that. And so we ended up finding out that really the appraiser really just wanted it replaced, which wasn't arguably, I would say it was in the best interest of the buyer, sure. And I could even make the argument that it probably was in the best interest of protecting the lien on the house and the condition. But at the same time, that technically is an opinion, because doing the right thing is what the appraiser said the verbiage was. It sounds like the sellers are trying to get out of doing the right thing. I was like, well, respectfully, because I also had to work with him again. There was another home I had, and he was the appraiser for that one. And I was just like, I can't find anywhere online. So I don't know if you have another book or version, but I'm not seeing that. And it was kind of through pushing that he ended up removing the requirement from the report, but reduced the value by $1,500.
You got me fired up. And really, Nicole, we could almost just spend the entire time on this question because it is that important and everybody has some say. But in a case like that, we have what's called scope creep in our work, where appraisers saying, well, I think this or that. It's not what you think, it's what is in the guidelines. So VA and FHA have guidelines. VA follows FHA. And what I see all the time is FHA does not require an oven in the house. They don't require a dishwasher, microwave. They require a kitchen sink. That's all they require. And they require an outlet for an oven. That's the new one they came out with this year, right? So that's all they require. Most appraisers don't know that because they don't get all nerdy like me and read through all these guidelines. So when an agent calls me in a case like this, I say, yeah, ask the appraiser what page, what paragraph that's on the guidelines. It can't be, you just need to do the right thing. Yeah. That's ridiculous, right? I mean, it needs to have some guidelines. But I'll end with, so there's some good news here. It's that appraisals, for the most part, are ordered on rotation. If someone orders someone can order an appraisal directly for, I want to know what my home is worth, or it's an estate, unfortunate divorce case, and I'm honored that one of you all might call me and feel comfortable with me coming to your house. But they're ordered on rotation, which means it almost forces appraisers to be more diverse. Because if your office is in Jefferson County, you might want to only do work there because you might make more money because you're not driving back to Tallahassee, right? But if you want to have enough work, you're going to have to do work in Tallahassee. Likewise, if my office is in, say, Eastern Leon County, like this week, we're doing a manufactured home in Jefferson County. We're doing a home on 50 acres in Northeast County. We're doing 3 homes on the south side of Tallahassee near Orange, and I'm doing a manufactured home on Highway 20. So I'm going all over the place. So I've always done that, but the rotation almost forces appraisers to do that. So you don't have one appraiser who just does one area. You need to be doing appraisals in different areas if it makes sense. Sorry for the long.
It's okay.
I can tell you about it.
All right. So for the property manager, what steps do you take to ensure that your rental practices comply with fair housing laws and promote equal opportunity for all tenants?
So earlier when Greg was talking about descriptions, listing descriptions, it first starts there. In rental descriptions, it can be the same way. But with rentals, you often have a lot of people who just apply sight unseen. And then so with that, they may be, if they're not familiar with the area, or they may be renting because they're relocating or things like that, there can often be probing questions that they're calling, asking about the neighborhood, about anything to do with the property. And that can be a really easily slippery slope. So we have a couple things. Every property, as a part of preparing for it, there's a script that we pretty much use that is just the basic facts about the home. That's it. The square footage, number of beds, number of baths. Usually renters don't typically ask about like the roof age or things like that, but just any last sort of no maintenance that we know of, especially if we recently acquired it or things like that. Sometimes we've even had people ask, like, why did the last person move out? I don't know what that would tell you or what that means. So really being sure to avoid questions like that, but also in terms of source of income, that can be a very easy one to get caught up in. So I'm not a lawyer by any means, so certainly consult one, but denying someone based on just the source of their income alone can be a very big violation of fair housing. Now, if there were other factors that are against your set rental criteria that are consistent, case by case, be careful of, oh, well, I need to check with the owner on certain things. Like, you've got to be really, really careful on those, because, and staying up to date with attending conferences and symposiums like this, having a lawyer on staff on retainer, not on staff, on retainer to ask questions like this, and networking with colleagues, because information does change, but sometimes you think you've got it just right. Or there are particulars where you're like, this could go either way. And so being able to have that necessarily check and balance.
Yes, Dante.
To comment to what you said. Sort of so they take that. So it's gonna change out of this part legislative session. That's, I think it's gonna take an effect in July, so it's not gonna be effect now. So to a point, the fair housing, we have to stay on top of the different changes concerning that, because that was a protected class, particularly in Hillsborough County, Orange County, Miami-Dade, Robert, those protected class that is now supposed to be now protected.
Okay, thank you. So I did not mention that Mr. Wills is an 8-year member of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, which is the oldest and largest Black trade organization with a membership of over 10,000, and current president of the Tallahassee Association of Realtors, also known as TAR, which has a current membership of 35 with expectations of being at least 100 by mid-2024. And you all just had a regional conference here.
Local gala.
Local gala, right here in this room. Okay. So the next question is for the NARAB TAR Leadership and Advocacy. What initiatives has NARAB TAR undertaken to promote fair housing practices and ensure equal access to housing for all individuals?
Our national president was here in this room April 17th. And she was mentioning to me as she was going back to the airport at 5 o'clock in the morning, about what she was doing personally. And she had met with President Biden and President Harris, and Vice President Harris, as it relates to that, and talking to them about the things that need to be done. So when we start talking about who NARAB is, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, TAR is just a mini version of that. That's what we're becoming. We're only 2 years old. So we're a mini version of that. But that's the level of commitment that they have as it relates to fair housing and everything else, and trying to get involved to ensure that we as African Americans get our fair shake at this supposed American dream and not be, I think I heard Mr. Richardson say, an American nightmare. So we have to be able to do that. So all of these policies and things they've been involved with forever. NARAB now, I think, is 77 years old? I think it's 77 years, 1947. So whatever that math is, I think it's 77 years old. They've been promoting fair housing forever. All of us in here who own houses stand on the shoulders of those people who have done those things for us. I met a lot of people, athletes, entertainers, and people who supposed to be whatever it is. I'm never really impressed. I met the first Black realtor ever through NARAB. And I'm sitting there looking at him like, dude, I know you went through a lot. And I'm just so impressed about who he is and what he had became, because now he has the largest Black mortgage company in the country. And so through NARAB, through all of the advocacy, is what we do. Doing everything for fair housing and everything else that we do to ensure that we have the right opportunity that everyone else has. We're not looking for a handout. I just need you to get out the way. And so if you do that, then we have demonstrated and proven that we can do what we need to do from home ownership standpoint. And NARAB has been the absolute best behind that, and meeting with all of the policymakers in DC and doing so.
Follow-up question to that. Can you discuss any recent successes or challenges NARAB has faced in advancing fair housing goals?
Well, it's our lawsuit. this suit against NAR. That may be a roundabout way of answering that, but
Can you say what NAR is?
NAR is National Association of Realtors. NAR is our governing body, and this lawsuit that just came on board. Well, it's not didn't just come on board. It was actually just settled as it relates to agents not being able to get compensated for helping buyers. And so there's a big question about, well, what happens? What happens with buyers? How do they get representation? Do they pay for the agent fees and so forth and so on? Well, that is a big challenge in our community because right now it's not worked out. I mean, we're working on it, and everybody should be trying to figure out what that solution is going to be. But just like anything else, I mean, I used to hear this old adage and so forth, is that when America catch the cold, African Americans get pneumonia. And so this is gonna hit our community the most because of down payment assistance. You need guidance. You've ever tried to go buy a house without a realtor? I mean, you don't know what you don't know. And so if they don't have representation or they got to pay for representation, which they don't have, we just talked about down payment assistance and so forth, that is something that's in our industry. And it's like, so who's going to get affected the most by that? They said, well, people can pay for that. Okay, well, if you, a lot of us sell homes on the upper end and so forth, well, maybe that buyer can. But those are the people who don't think they need you anyway. So the people on the lower end who really need you, who don't have the money to do that, so what do they do now? So that's the biggest thing that's in our industry right now that I know that NARAB is actively, they're creating what we call a toolbox to all of its members so we can continue to navigate and so that you don't lose a number of realtors in the process of this, because when people can't get paid, they got to go do something different. I saw a hand go up.
So.
Be glad to.
All right. Back to Alisa. What steps do you take to ensure no, that was the first one, sorry. How do you ensure that your marketing and advertising efforts comply with fair housing laws and promote diversity and inclusion?
Again, it goes back to educating myself on what the laws are. You can't follow rules that you don't know, right? So that's the first thing. But in terms of any marketing and advertising that we do, I make it a priority to, if I create any graphics, any information that is diverse and inclusionary. Short story, I had my first client, and Karen, you may remember last year, it was a blind individual. It was my first blind client, and I was so excited and humbled to be able to represent him and relocate into Tallahassee and helping him maneuver through the process. But I learned so much about how I needed to improve my business practices. So in terms of contracts, we had to transcribe those so that he could know what he was agreeing to. I've made changes to my website where it's handicap accessible. In terms of font sizes and different things like that. And then just, again, knowing what the rules are so that to the best of my professional ability, and I think I can say that for all the realtors here and a lot of them that I know, it's our goal to make sure people have a seamless process. And whether you have a disability or you have any other challenges, it's our responsibility to make sure that we accommodate you. So in that process, again, it was very humbling, but I learned how to actually serve someone that was blind.
Nothing like real life experience, right? All right, back to Greg. How do you handle situations where there are discrepancies in property values that may be influenced by factors such as neighborhood demographics?
As I said earlier, we can use demographics in an appraisal. I don't usually. Like, we could put crime statistics in the appraisal if it's published documented data. I don't. I think it's negative, and if somebody read that, they might think incorrectly. You can look that up yourself. Any buyer can. In fact, anybody reviewing my appraisal can. But what I could say is something positive. For example, if I lived in South City's not far from here, and say in South City recently, the city of Tallahassee has improved the drainage. They've added streetlights, they've added sidewalks, et cetera. This neighborhood's within walking distance of a park. It's transportation is available. It's close to downtown. That to me would be positive information that I could say, and I could document all that. Otherwise, we're not going to put anything else in the appraisal that would construe anything negative. Only documented, and again, I think people can look that up themselves. The lenders who review the appraisals, they don't want to see all that. They want to know about the house. They want to know about the property and what it's worth. They can look up anything else themselves, and all the comparable sales I'd be using would be generally from the same area as well.
Okay. Thank you. And Danielle, how do you address tenant complaints or concerns related to discrimination or fair housing issues?
So that's interesting. Thankfully, we have not had that for any of the properties that we manage. I have had that amongst social circles where people I know have felt that, well, some have just felt, but others, like, it certainly was, it appears to be warranted. And the advice I always give there is first try coming in face to face. Y'all sit down and talk to each other, but also depending on the nature of your complaint, don't come in with any subjectivity. Whatever it is that you are complaining about should be factual. On this day, this person did X, Y, Z. This is what happened. This is who witnessed it. This is what was said. Remove all of your subjectivity from it. Document the course of that meeting. Give that person a timeline and deadline, to provide you with adequate next steps and responses and things of that sort. Should that not happen, follow up one additional time in writing, and then, further proceed up the chain in the event it is indeed a fair housing violation or things of discrimination and things like that. Because whether it is a private property management company, an individual owner, landlord, which can have it, and I like a little caveat asterisk there, because there are some different laws and protections if someone individually owns something and also lives there, and a few other things that change. But all in all, I should say, we're all governed by fair housing. It's a federal thing across the country. So whether we're here in Tallahassee, Miami, or all the way on the West Coast, that experience should not feel different. It should not look different. If no matter where we are, if you're describing, or no matter who you are, if we're describing a property, if we're talking about the application process, if we're talking about the requirements, it should be the same information, and it should be consistent and transparent across the board.
Okay, thank you. And Daryl, in what ways, if any, does NAREB encourage its members to proactively address issues of discrimination and promote diversity and inclusion in the real estate industry?
Can I answer one other thing that was mentioned before that one?
Go ahead.
So I think, Zach, when they were mentioning this about the question about living where you can afford, and they don't want to stay in certain places. It's our job to educate them. Because if you're renting right now, where you can afford is better than where you're renting. So it's our job to help educate them. Like, this is your first house, and the only reason is you first, because there should be some other ones, as opposed to you just sitting there and thinking, well, I'm going to wait. Well, because the prices are going up, interest rates are going up. So So are you waiting to get yourself together so you can move to your dream house? Okay, things have changed. And so it's our job to help educate them to say, hey, look, I understand that. In sales, they call it a feel, found, felt. I feel what you're saying. I found that to be true. But we're gonna need you to, you know, I understand that you want to live over here. That's 380. You 180. So we're gonna find you the best 180 we can get, and then you start the process. You can't make a jump shot sitting in the stands. You got to get in the game. So we got to get you in the game first, and then within a few years, then we can move you to a different squad. But right now, we just need to get you in the game. So I wanted to make sure I addressed that. Like what, and I'm sure all of us do the same thing, because you just, this is where your money at. Get your money up. Then we can do something a little bit different, and we can help you get your money up, but we're going to have to get your stuff up first. Yeah.
It's a good follow-up. So I've heard plenty of times I don't want to work with this realtor anymore because they were only showing me houses in this location, right? Or on this side of town. And that is typically because that is where the budget affords, right? But I want to encourage you all, if you hear someone saying that, if you've maybe said that before, look at how you can reframe that into saying, maybe having a conversation with both your realtor and lender together. Are there any programs out there? Are there any other opportunities? Are there things I can pay down or off? You alluded to this earlier in your question. Maybe if that area is not where you desire, on top of one, having the conversation about why, right? Like, is that an internal cultural thing? I have this degree, I have this amount of money now, I don't want to live here, right? So first examine that. But if that is truly where you don't desire to live, look at what other opportunities may expand and unlock other neighborhoods for you. Consider if Leon County isn't where you want to reside, are there one of the surrounding counties that may be able to provide better opportunity for you? Are there things on your must-have list and needs list that may be able to be revisited? But please definitely move away from my realtor only showed me houses in this location, because we are not hiding the good homes, especially with the expansion of the internet and sites like Zillow and Realtor.com. You all can see a lot of what we can see. And while we may have opportunities before they come to market and, just other Rolodex of inventory, generally, if you type in whatever your price point is and toggle 3 beds, 2 baths and things of that sort, you can pretty much see as of current moment what's on the market. And that would be a good indicator of if that's something that's going to be comfortable for you. Are there a lot of options and you have your pick, or is it slim pickings for you and maybe we need to come back to the drawing board in one way or another?
All right, thank you.
I'm gonna add to that.
Go ahead.
I grew up in, y'all call them mobile homes. I grew up in a trailer. Because I just like to be real, because we get this thing twisted sometime about where you start. And the reason we call them trailer, because I remember the hitch on the back. So some of y'all might say, what is a hitch on the back? It's a trailer. Y'all call them mobile homes. Y'all got skirts and stuff all around them, dressed up. It's a mobile home, meaning if you miss the payments.
Did he say skirts and dressed up, sir?
They come and drag the house away when you home from school. It's a trailer. So I grew up there. So that's what my thing is. Whatever people have considered the bottom, I grew up on a dirt road in a trailer. I understand that. But that's your starting point. It's not your ending point. And that's the thing that we have to get across to them with that. Because if not, they're missing out on this whole process of being able to generate generational wealth, because you're waiting. And now you've been there for 10 years in a rental place, making somebody else rich, talking about this your forever home. It's not your home. You're a couple of payments from outside. So we just have to, we as in our profession, we have to help them as much as possible, because we were sitting right where they were. I know I was. It's a mentality thing, because I got mobile home trailer on my mind. When I met my wife, she said, no, sir. We're going to do something different than that. Yeah, we're going to do something different than that. So that helps, right? And so, but our job and goal is to let's get you in the game. Because you in somebody else's game when you're renting. You can believe that or not. You in somebody else's game. They got performers and all kind of stuff written out on you already. Because what I'm gonna make off of you all of this time period. So we got to get you in the game. So I understand that's not where you want to be, but this is where you are right now. Let's deal with it and let's figure out. Let's get you a game plan to get you to where you really want. Oh. Is she? The community wealth building tour. That's what you looking at me like that. What I was supposed to answer 10 minutes ago.
Yes. Yes.
This Tar NARAB put on and I'm going to pass this to you because it's just you was the chairperson. NARAB, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, and TAR is our member chapter, and we're at 51, not 35. But I know you didn't know. I get it. I'm just messing with you because I hadn't seen you in a while. So community wealth building tour. Our illustrious president, Madam Dr. Courtney Johnson Rose, had this great idea of being able to, it wound up being 101 locations, cities across the nation. We had the community Black wealth building tour. And the goal was to touch as many African Americans as we could and introduce them to home buying, which inclusive of credit, talking about credit, home repair, mortgage, every single thing that you can talk. We had real estate professionals talking with them across the country, one single time. And on that day, the data came out the other day, nationally, we reached 25,000 African Americans in one single day. This ain't never been done before in one single day. And we're going to have a second one next year. Our chair, who knows more about this than I do, I'm going to let her talk about that so I don't be pontificating on stuff I don't necessarily know as well as she does.
Okay, so that was a great kickoff, and be on the lookout for more as it's a part of a series. And so in wealth building, you may ask, why was it named that as opposed to just a first-time home buyers workshop? Because there's something for all of us. So whether we're diving into a workshop on careers in real estate and being able to access and discuss what does it take to become a real estate appraiser? I don't know about you all. I never knew about an appraiser in high school or, prior to being in real estate. I had absolutely no idea what it takes or the requirements and things like that. It's access and exposure, awareness to what it takes to become a home inspector, land surveyor. People think real estate and immediately think sales associate and don't often think about all of the fantastic team member roles because we all work together in being able to get to the finish line. In addition to that, when we break out and disaggregate the data a little bit further, we see that of Black homeowners, Black women own homes more than Black men. So Black men buy houses too. It's an additional workshop and things. How do we dive into increasing the Black homeownership rate, specifically targeting as well Black men? What else? There was another one. Oh, what to do with Big Mama's house. So another thing that often plagues our community is estate planning, legacy building and protection, trust. And one of the wonderful things about unlocking generational wealth is it's great to be the first person to do that and get that start, but we have to make sure we protect it. So Big Mama's house or whatever you may have called your matriarch, patriarch in your family, some people say if, but I guess when it would be the better word, when they do pass away. I didn't know how to approach that. I recently heard somebody say if they pass away, and I'm like, my head started like spinning around like that. So anyway, when that time does come and that falls into your shoulders, there are several different ways to avoid probate and, what all that looks like for your family and having different things in place. And so again, the more you know, when you know better, you do better. And those different workshops amongst several are all a part of how we not only build wealth, maintain wealth, protect our wealth, and continue to transfer it into our generations to come.
All right. I want to check in with our virtual audience and see if we have any questions or comments. Okay, we'll move on. All right. So the final question, and this is for everyone. I want to start with Greg. And the question is, what do you see as the biggest challenges and or opportunities in advancing fair housing goals in the coming years?
I'll speak, I'm a realtor as well, but I'll just speak to appraisal. We're a business that is the majority men over 45. There aren't a lot of women in our profession. We need to change that. I've hired 2 women appraisers in the past. They've been fantastic. And I don't care what background somebody has. I hire anybody who's qualified and wants to work past 5 o'clock, which is these days hard to find anymore. But what they're doing, the Appraisal Foundation and the other GSEs are trying to do is create a different path to get more appraisers into our business. So there's a thing out now called PARIA, which is like a mentoring process to get more young people. And as you said, some people don't even know appraisal exists, right? I actually write some of the questions for the state of Florida on the test, but very few people are taking the test. And there are reasons why people aren't getting into appraisal. Usually it's because it's the longer hours, it's a lot of writing, but we do need to diversify a little more. And that's one way we're trying to do that. And of course, that then follows, hopefully we have good appraisers who are well-rounded who can then do good appraisals on the properties that you all are selling.
Thank you. For each of you.
Do you mind repeating the question again?
Not at all. What do you see as the biggest challenge and or opportunity in advancing fair housing goals in the coming years?
I think the biggest opportunity is an avenue to be innovative. In Daryl's bio, when he talked about the phrase on no dead deals and things like that, fair housing and affordable housing deals with creativity and innovation. You absolutely have to take multiple fixed factors and make them work. How do we look at them from a different angle? When we turn our head and squint our eyes, what do we need to do? But we also have to be innovative as champions. It is easy to overlook fair housing and focus on what people deem to be the real money makers and all of these price points that are outside of affordable. When you look at the new income guidelines, I think they're already out. I don't know if they're like published on the website and different things like that, but a one-person household, it is either just under 50 or at 50,000 in terms of
it's a fact. It started.
You talked about it earlier. Okay.
April 1st.
I should have been here earlier.
It's okay.
But you see that. And so for me, that hits home for me very much so, because when I started out in 2014 at my first teaching job, and you couldn't tell me nothing in Gaston County, I just finished at UCF and I just was so excited to pay bills. And my salary was $32,000. So let's take that gross assumption and say that was my same salary 10 years later. I would be potentially eligible at that time, I was a one-person household, to take advantage of opportunities that fell for low to moderate income as a degreed person, as a degree professional teaching, right? That's not someone's immediate mindset of what you think about when you think about those programs and opportunities. So advocate for them, because the person to your left, the person to your right, things like that, it may be something that can benefit many of the people that you know. So let's all work together in that advocacy and think about how we can be innovative in our approach.
Thank you.
Could you repeat the question?
So,
What
do you see as the biggest challenge and or opportunity in advancing fair housing goals in the near future?
I was just messing with you.
Uh-huh.
This is not political, because we're not going to get political, but we're rolling back everything in this country. Everything is getting rolled back. We're taking everything away for everything that has been fought for in this country. And so as we begin to move forward, hopefully we stop that, because these are the things that make things so much more challenging from a fair housing standpoint, because who knows what's next? And so when I hear these answers are great and they're true, but the first thing that comes to my mind is that we're in uncertain times right now, because so many things that we have been accustomed to waking up and being okay with, those things are now being removed from the table, and we're having to pivot once again. And so that's what I say is that the biggest thing to that is, like, we have to be creative, because if we don't, so many things are being taken away that our ancestors have fought for. And I just don't understand what's next. I thought in my naivety that probably up to a year or two ago, civil rights, what we still talking about that for? Somebody's dumbing a bag of hammers with all this stuff that didn't happen. So my thing is now I am more in tune with all of those things and understanding that the fight continues, because more things get rolled away from us, and we understanding that housing is the greatest generational wealth thing that you can have. That could be next if we stay asleep. Somebody said we need to get woke. I think the commissioners, and stay woke. And that's what we have to do.
Thank you.
Really doing.
Wrote the question, ma'am. What do you see as the biggest challenge and or opportunity in advancing fair housing goals in the near future?
Have I mentioned education and training already today? I've only said that every time I spoke, but seriously, as it pertains to the challenges that I see that we face right now, it's affordable housing. Honestly, you have people that work every day, full-time jobs, and we have a dire need to create those affordable housing opportunities for people. Being that I worked at Florida Housing on a statewide level, I've seen a lot of affordable housing programs, administered some of them, but I will tell you that Tallahassee, Leon County has been innovative, to take your word, when it comes to compiling or creating those programs, stacking them, and making homeownership a reality for people that really didn't think they could. And so I take great pride in being here and being a realtor here and partnering with organizations like TLC, who has that community land trust property where people are able to purchase a home. Like, where we don't know of anywhere that someone can get a new construction home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, I don't care what side of town it's on, $460,000. Is that right? But we're able to do that through the programs that TLC has. We were just able to, my brokerage was able to list a property that was partially funded through the county homeownership development program, where the builder got $65,000 and they were able to pass that along to a qualified buyer. And then those funds were also coupled with Florida Housing's HOP program, their homeownership program. She got $90,000. Actually, we closed 2 of those, $90,000. And it just would not have been possible without the innovation and the dedication that we have from our local government as well as the nonprofits in the area. So that's the challenge, affordability. The opportunities are there for people like us that are sitting in this room and getting this information. To me, fair housing is 365 days, not the month of April. And so what I would challenge you all to do is take this information, share this information, and if you see something that doesn't look right in terms of fair housing, if you see some discrimination, Dante said earlier, people struggle with completing the process. But if you don't complete the complaint process, we don't make a big enough noise about the issue, right? We have a select few making the noise. But what, again, I would challenge you to do is get involved 365 in fair housing events. Keep being mindful when you're purchasing a home or you hear someone that wants to rent a property and they have a complaint that there are fair housing laws, and ask them to call a state agency or whomever in regards to that. And then I'll close with this, it's partnerships like this and being involved in things like this that really catapults our profession in terms of being knowledgeable and being experts. We learned a lot here today in regards to fair housing, but not only today, I had the opportunity to read to the kids at Pineview, which is a part of this fair housing celebration, but we learned about a book. I'll probably butcher the name, The Fair Housing 5 and the Haunted House. I didn't know about that book. I've been doing real estate for 20 years. I did not know about this book. But now, because I know about the book, we're able to take this information back to the Tallahassee Board of Realtors, partner with the Boys and Girls Club, and make sure we educate these kids about what fair housing looks like.
Thank you. Go ahead. It's okay, go ahead.
I did just want to say a final challenge to you all, because I had this recent revelation. And when we're talking about wealth building, go home, pick up the phone, contact your immediate family members and ask them, do they own a home, right? And I know in the African-American community, that type of question could be a little taboo, you know, even though you're grown, mom might stay in the child's place and that wasn't the business. And those are not the type of conversations openly that we have. That's part of the problem. That's part of why we don't know what to do with Big Mama's house, because we didn't even know Big Mama owned it, right? And we don't know who to pay the mortgage to, or that there was a reverse mortgage or any of those things on it. And so ask that question because there are opportunities for affordable housing to build wealth right there in front of you, to have conversations, share the knowledge that you learned today with your family, and no longer allow for that type of question or conversation to be taboo. Be proud when you're paying your mortgage, encourage, showcase to your children, let them know that, you know, you all own this home, involve them to the degree and, you know, and to their scale, right? That is like in things as they relate to home ownership. If you're replacing your roof, or if you're getting the house pressure wash, or why you're doing those things and why they're important to ownership and developing pride of ownership, even though it's a little bit of a taboo phrase, but still why you're doing those things, because you're raising future homeowners. And so they need to know what that looks like. Yes, we've lived here for X number of years, but I know that this is our home.
Thank you. I believe Zach had a question.
On our side, getting question of people pretty sure you all have it. And what the conversation looks like with people who say, I'm just gonna wait for home prices to come down. You know, one, are you seeing home prices come down on your side on the appraisal side? And what's the conversation look like with buyers saying, I'm gonna wait till home prices come down the first house?
That's a great question.
So the conversation that I have had more times than I would have liked to have is the real reality of where we are right now is the interest rates and the prices have priced people out. They have. But at the same time, we had rates in the 3-4% that was historically low. And so no one has a crystal ball. We don't know where things are going, but we do know we are not seeing prices go down. And so my short answer is there will never be the perfect time for you to purchase a home. But if it's attainable for you right now, meaning the interest rates and the prices haven't priced you out, now is that perfect time for you to start building that generational wealth that we've been talking about.
You know, it's so interesting you talk about those interest rates. When I started at TLC back in the mid 90s, rates were in double digits. And I can remember a lender, a local lender that said, so the rates started going down. They went down to like 7. And he was like, we'll never finance a 7% interest rate loan. So it's just funny to hear all of that. That's context. All right.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
We're called real estate professionals for a reason. Now, we understand that there are some people in our profession that probably shouldn't be called anything, but at the same time, when we're giving some of this advice, we really need you to understand, and I'm thinking about a client right now that we sold their house a few years ago, and they were just know that the market's going to crash. It's going to crash. I'm like, okay, so where are you getting this information that we're not getting? It's going to crash. I'm going to wait. Got a call recently, ready to get back in the game. But the house that they wanted now is $100,000 more than when I tried to tell them before. And now they all baffled, I'm like, I tried to tell you, but, like they say, where I grew up, I tried to told you, but they didn't want to listen. And so I wanted them. So the thing is that we're in this business and we hear everything and know a lot of different things. We don't know everything. But we're sharing information with you that we want you to listen to so you can make the best decision for yourself. Now, I'm sitting there looking at them like, okay, well, call me when you're ready. And then when they're ready, it's $100,000 more. And so my advice is just, if you got somebody that you can listen to, please listen to them because it's going to be very helpful for you.
Thank you. Let me get Keisha and then Karen. One question, ma'am.
And in the future, do you see these licenses being acquired through rural enrollment or locations? Okay.
I think that is a great way to look at that as a wonderful perspective. So there's a minimum age requirement to obtain a real estate license, appraiser, I would imagine same type of thing, right? At least 18 in Florida. That is current law that could change. So there could be the possibility to do that. You have to at least have a high school diploma or equivalent as well. So I think the possible dual enrollment opportunity or things like that I think there's a way that could come because I can see benefit in that. You have to have your sales associate license for at least 2 years in the state of Florida as current law before you are eligible to apply for a broker's license amongst a few other criteria. Now, you don't technically have had to have a sale, but you had to have held that license for at least 2 years. So I wouldn't be surprised if more licensures and certifications and trades in general started to see a wave again of much more attention. I think the popularity and attention around that drifted a bit because of the significant push for college and post-secondary education, which is still extremely valuable. I think part of the realtor I am today is because of my academic background and quite honestly, some of the networking and past clients that I've had come from my alumni associations and connections I've made in college. So while that is invaluable, I do think that we'll see a rise or shift in attention back to certifications and trades and different things again that dwindled a little bit.
And then too, I just wanted to add, when I got my license, I went to the school at Lively. I don't know if they still do it, but that's a vocational school. So the opportunities were there in the past. I just haven't kept up with it to see if they still do that. But one thing I also want to, yes, for my real estate license, yes. And the other thing that I want to add too is there are so many opportunities to do things in real estate. I think Danielle kind of alluded to this. You can be an appraiser. There are different aspects of being in this industry, and you don't necessarily, not to deter anybody from being a real estate agent, but you don't need to buy property, to invest in property, to build that generational wealth. You don't have to be a licensed real estate agent. So I just wanted to throw that out there too. I really got into real estate to be a real estate investor. And so that was my goal. And my mindset was a little bit different. Initially, it was like, I don't need a realtor, but but we do need realtors. I always say when I'm doing the first time homebuyer class, it's like when you get in legal trouble, you don't try to defend yourself. When you're sick, you don't try to treat yourself right. So when you're buying a house, don't do it on your own. And so that was my experience early on. But it's important to, if you don't have a license, to kind of team up with someone that is knowledgeable about real estate.
Thank you. All right, Karen.
I'm good. I just wanted to thank you because across the board, I just
Nice. Well, I guess Karen just closed us on out. Thank you, panel, for your great insight and your comments, and keep doing the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, you all have hung in there with us. We really appreciate it. We're about to bring this on home and get ready to conclude our 2024 Big Bend Fair Housing Conference. How was it for you? Good. So we had a dynamic day of presenters, from Dante with the Florida Commission on Human Relations to TLC and Zach from Regions, as well as our closing panel, which was absolutely fantastic. So I want to make mention of our partners, which this Big Bend partnership is an area-wide collaboration which consists of Bethel Community Development Corporation, Big Bend Habitat for Humanity, the City of Tallahassee, the Florida Commission on Human Relations, Gadsden County Housing, Leon County Housing, Mount Olive Affordable Housing and Community Development Corporation, the Quincy Community Redevelopment Agency, Tallahassee Housing Authority, and of course the Tallahassee Lenders Consortium. So give that partnership a hand. They're the ones that helped put this on. So all the committee members, and then we definitely want to acknowledge the executive director of the Corporation for Community and Economic Development, Dr. Patricia McGill. In her absence, we give her tribute and pay honor to her. And then I also want to bring up Mr. Tremaine Hughes with the City of Tallahassee. They were a title sponsor, but he's going to give us some closing remarks. He is the manager of diversity and inclusion. So while Tremaine is making his way on up here, I want to remind you all, if you aren't aware or may need a reminder, that there is a civil rights gala that's taking place on Friday at 6 p.m. and tickets are available on Eventbrite online. So please get your tickets for that event, which will be at Hotel Duval. And then finally, if you missed the live broadcast on Mondays at 5:30 for the past 3 weeks last night, it was with Joe Walker. Raise your hand, Joe. We talked civil rights. Last Monday, it was with Karen Miller with TLC. We talked housing opportunities. And then the Monday before was with Dante Bonner. We talked about fair housing. So you can definitely catch the replay on Conversations with Nicole YouTube channel. They are there for your viewing and for you to share. And somebody lost their keys. Tammy is holding them up. So if you or misplaced your keys, please get, of course it would be Daryl. Of course it would be Mr. Wills. All right, I want to just thank you for allowing me to serve as your host and moderator today. It has been my extreme pleasure to serve you in that capacity.
So again, we want to thank Nicole. She does a really great job. We have the event on Friday. We also have
upcoming events that will be coming in the months, June, October. This year, we want to do something a little bit different. We want to expand fair housing past the month of April. So please make sure that you're looking social media, email, different things like that, so you're able to participate. We greatly appreciate everyone coming out today. Have a wonderful day.